Okay, so again, our last session we went over variable planes. I think everybody got the email, should have got the email about the variable planes of attack and understanding the three communicators. We've got Francesco Molinari. It's probably one of the most neutral swings on the tour. Certainly a million ways to do it. This is I like I like his hand action through the ball and just his whole actually just his entire swing. So this is one of the reasons why I use him as a reference every week. And it's somebody that's just he's not a really like a raw athlete. He's just a just normal guy. So, but he really swings the club really well and downswing wise very neutral. And so that's why we go with him. So what we're going to start this session about today is going to be about the right shoulder and then the hands through the ball. So the attacking with the right shoulder and the function of how that works, and then the how the hand should work. Um, pre-release and then through the through impact, the grip alignment point, and that's the sustaining part as well. And I think that is something literally if we did, you could do that every single night if you did a webinar. Just cover the how the hands come in, the hand to club relationship come into the ball pre-release, and then impact and then through. So, but the right shoulder is I get a lot of questions on that. And if you have questions along the way, we're going to stop this here, and it won't be too long. After I demonstrate a few swings and go over it, I'm going to open up for questions, and we'll do a little Q&A. It looks like I'm just looking at who's attending here, and there may be only a couple guys that are on their computer where they have the computer audio. And if you're on the phone line, I'm not on the phone line, so you just need to chat in your questions. Just type in the questions. I'll see them, and then I'll make sure I reference the answers at the end. All right, so get this out of the way, and then we'll get rolling. So starting with the right shoulder, obviously we're going to be in transition. So if we're working from the float zone, as if we know the length of his swing, at the end of the length of the swing is there, that float started for him in this area here where the club just starts to slow down and collect. You can even see it without manipulating the speed before we go to the right shoulder, because this is important. So as I'm going here, you'll see the club just kind of settle in, and then it starts to go back down. That split second is one of the most crucial parts to golf. If you miss that, you miss everything. And I say that every week. It's more important. It affects the hands. If you miss that, if you prematurely accelerate with the hips, the shoulders, the arms, the club head, whatever it may be, in that zone right there, it is going to be chaos trying to stabilize the face through impact. And it's going to be chaos trying to get that torque we talk about from the club to ball relationship. So, whereas the ball would be feeling like it's stuck to the face, it's going to get massaged up, down, left, right, whatever it may be. Just won't have that direct hit, and so too much spin, too much misdirection, and all that stuff. So when you're in this, again, we'll do this one more time, then we'll start with the shoulder. Just right here, that's where the club slows down. You collect it, and then everything connects together like we talked about last week, the three communicators. We've got the sweet spot, we've got the shoulders, and then we've got the hips here. So from here, if he's collected, the reason why I say that, if you've got the club collected, if you don't have it collected, the right shoulder is not going to work. If you have the club collected and you feel like you have the handle loaded and you feel like your body's loaded up correctly, then the right shoulder is an easy way to start to unwind into the ball. And so we'll talk about it. Let me get this shoulder here. So in my videos, most of you have seen the videos, the public videos that I have online about the attacking with the right shoulder. And all that is, excuse me just a second, I lost my spot to, here we go. So all that is where I talk about the right shoulder should attack the ball. And so if you watch here, we'll just kind of frame by frame it here slowly. And you'll see his right shoulder, move the line out of the way a little bit actually so you can actually see it. So as you see, the right shoulder just keeps moving, it never stops. And if you look at through the ball, that's where I talk about the right shoulder is on playing with the ball. It's as you're starting your downswing right here, that right shoulder, it's not coming, again, the right shoulder's not going this way. You know, it's going, it's working down, and it's keeping, it's also, again, you got to realize this is, it's got to have a relationship with the sweet spot. You can't just do the right shoulder and lose the sweet spot. So this right shoulder, after you've collected the club, it's frame by frame. If you can picture this, it's kind of like click, 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 as I talk about, with, and the club head's moving at the same rate of speed with that. And so that's where you're getting the delivery. And that never stops moving. If you watch these great players, it'll just continue to move. And then finally, in this area, the right shoulder will start to move, and it'll start to be the hands or whatever it may be. Some guys continue to twist, which really don't need to. It starts to put too much strain on the lower lumbar spine. So if I kept rotating that shoulder around, eventually you're going to get too much torque into the lower part of the spine because of the over rotation. So this is pretty much optimal for where you should actually finish. But again, we'll take a look at this. Pretty easy to see. Some players do it a little more than others, that's for sure. That's the plane that your shoulder's working on. Whereas most amateurs, as they start in transition, you know, he knows, obviously, like we talked about that club, he wants it behind the hands and up. We talked about that. But that right shoulder right here is moving. Just every time the club's moving towards the ball, the right shoulder's moving with it. That's really what's driving that. That's really what's driving that club head through. If you tip the club, if you tip the sweet spot out this way, which would be steeper over the top, and you try to drive with the right shoulder this way with the club steep, it's not going to work, because what will happen is that you'll probably take, and this is again probably, you'll probably take the right shoulder and go the same direction as you are with the club head. So that's why it's so important that in this collection area, so as you get here, it's so important to collect it and get everything loaded with the, as we talk about in the videos, the handle of the club. So that part's loaded, and then you know that the core, oops, I need to put that on there. And then the core is loaded, and then the glutes would be loaded. So those things, those three things are loaded. As soon as they're loaded, that's when you can start to unwind with the right shoulder, and it just continues to move. And if you watch, it's very lower. As you watch through this area, it's so much lower than like an amateur would be. Even a good amateur, much less a high handicapper. A high handicapper is going to have the shoulders more like this through there. It's going to be the right shoulder high. We call it a high right shoulder. That means you're going to typically, that would start, a high right shoulder would typically start right here, which would be a high right shoulder. It would move that way, and it wouldn't have this tilt to it as you see that he has. It's a nice tilt. Again, it's on plane with the ball. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's a lot lower than what you would see the typical amateur doing. But with the right shoulder, and we've obviously known we've had a lot of success with teaching the right shoulder. I certainly know that out there that it's probably we get a lot of attention for, because you don't hear a lot about it in the instruction world, but I'm certainly a believer of teaching the right side and the right shoulder. I'm not a hold the shoulders back and let the club flip top of swing coach. I can tell you that. I want the right shoulder moving, but I don't want it dominating either. It goes into communication, like we talked last week with the three communicators. Anything that sweet spot's doing, the shoulders and the hips have to be in communication with. So, and vice versa, everything has to be working together. So if you just hammer the right shoulder out and you tip the shaft over this way, it's not going to work. If you fire the shaft back down toward the ball and cast it out, and you're trying to drive the right shoulder, and you're driving the right shoulder on plane, it's not that easy. It's just one of those things where you just have to realize that you have to get the energy collected in the float zone first. And that's why I talk about that so much. So then these principles, like firing the right shoulder and like I talk about, or attacking the right shoulder, they start to work if you have those collected. But it still can't be more dominant than the sweet spot or the lower body or anything. They're all working together. It's just an easy swing thought when you have the clip collected, because if you have those in communication, it's just an easy way it's an easy swing thought on the golf course to lower the right shoulder on the plane of the ball and then just keep it lower. And so I'm going to look at it. We're going to look at a couple other players that you can really see it with. Obviously, every player moves that right shoulder. Nobody just lets the right shoulder sit, but some move it down a little lower than others, and that's for sure. Let's see. So here's Dustin Johnson. Yeah, same thing. We'll go up here. He's in the float zone. He's got everything collected. You can even see it there. It's just kind of settling in, and then all of a sudden, he's going to start getting that right shoulder on plane with the ball. You can see how low that right shoulder is right there. And it just continues to move, and then he's done. So he starts his float right before the end of the backswing. But you can see it's important when you're watching this motion here that he's not trying to snap it from the top, the right shoulder or the right hip or the club face. It's in sequence. That's why even if you watch his swing, yeah, he's got big power, but you don't really ever see that flash speed. And you know, where people talk about fast switch muscle fibers and all that, let me tell you, that's the last thing an amateur needs to think about is fast switch muscle fiber training and all this stuff. I mean, it's the last thing that they need to do. They're already firing the fast switch muscles. It's about torquing muscles, slow, big, heavy muscles. So you're talking about the glutes, the core, and everything being in communication together. You don't want to stop and start where you snap the hips and hold the hands back, or shoulders back, or snap the shoulders and hold the hands back, or whatever it may be. You want those three communicators that we always talk about to be smooth. And if you've torqued up like we've talked about in the float zone, where you slow down and you start to let the legs sink in and you get the butt back, you're going to have a tremendous amount of torque in all three areas. You're going to have it in the shaft, you're going to have it in the legs here, and in the core. And then again, you would unwind. A good swing thought is using the right shoulder to just continue to move that golf club and staying low. All right. Now we are going to go to Hunter Mahan here. You can see all three of these swings are different. You know, you got Hunter Mahan, a little flatter shoulder plane, club a little more behind, very tall in his hips here. There's no really tilt or anything like that. It's just different ways of doing it. So he's in his float zone here, as you will see. Get that up. There's the relationship with the right shoulder, and you'll see it work down on that line. Very similar to Dustin Johnson. And that's attacking with the right shoulder, as I talk about. And we get one of the things I like, that you don't have to have that. You don't have to have this crunched as much as that. But it certainly doesn't hurt. If you have that club head behind and up, like we talked about last week, if you have that club head, again, we'll go over it real quick, where you have the club head, we know it's behind the hands and it's up above the hands, and your body is working in a circle and communicating with each other. It does not hurt to be in this crunch position like this. And one of my old mentors, his name was Paul Berkeley, talked about this all the time. He said all the elite ball strikers have this dog's hind leg, probably pre-impact there, and you can see that bent elbow. And I like that. You don't have to have that. You can go through. That's more of a personal thing. I do believe there's less face rotation. I can tell you if that elbow ever gets over the left arm, so if that elbow position is here and has worked outward, if the hand has worked in that direction, you will not be a good player. That's a fact. There is no debate. There is no anything on that, other than you won't be good if that elbow comes out over and the right hand tips over that way as well, which would cause you to hit it off the toe. It would cause premature acceleration. you won't be able to stabilize the face, which I think actually answers Grant's question that he's been talking about a little bit by email with me, but we'll go over that later as well. But that dog's hind leg is a function. Most of that, there's two reasons why that's a function. That's a function of, again, the right shoulder working towards the ball like this on the angle of the ball. It's also a function of the club head remaining, again, up above the hands and also behind the hands. So so with those three things working and angling himself towards the ball this way, you're going to get more of that crunch. Now, anytime, he could still do that anytime that right elbow comes out, but he knows there's no need to do that. So that'll help stabilize the face. And you can see really one of the best drivers of the ball on tour, and so is Dustin Johnson, but you can see this really good face control through here. And a lot of that is his elbow's bent, and his body has inclined towards the ball versus going like amateurs will. They'll go that way, and a pro's going, that way. That's going to help stabilize the face as well. Having the right arm bent like that, Jim Furyk style, Dustin Johnson, Gary Woodland, that helps stabilize this face, so you have better face control. You can see right here, and I can't tell exactly, it's a little bit of a blur, but that's about much of the face rotation that he has right there. Whereas if you're watching an amateur, if I was measuring, or even some of the pros, they would have, that toe would be turned all the way over through this part of the swing. So that's the face rotation. So being able to control the face without a lot of strain or pressure or any of that stuff, that's an art, and it's what everybody here should be trying to work on. So so this is a really good example as well. So I'm going to let it run through it. You can see he still stays through it just like that. A little over rotated. You don't really need that much. You certainly can blow out the back by twisting that much, but I'm going to let this run just a little bit so you can see it. Notice the angle it's attacking on. If you watch the top part of the shoulder here, it's staying on and under that line. That helps fight that club head behind, but it's still rotating. Whereas amateurs, sometimes when they hear this, they think that the right shoulder should go this way. The right shoulder has to get it's on the plane. So if you realize from here, as soon as you're starting down, it's not one movement. It's a sequence of movements where it's just continuing to flow down that line, and it never stops moving. If it stalls on you, so if that right shoulder stalls, any part of it stalls. So if I got here, if he stopped here, if he stopped his body right here and just swung his arms, he'd hit a big flip hook. He'd hit what we call an angled hook, where he'd hit his club would come too far in from the inside. He would hit the outer portion of the ball with the toe of the club, and it would go into the trees right over here. If he took his spine right here, and he just, even at this point, and it can still happen, and he just twisted really hard right here and outran it, it would be the other way. The club would still hit from the inside, but it would be he would hit more of the inside of the ball, too far inside of the ball, and it would be instead of the outside ball, and it would be this big block. And so that's why it's so important when you train to continue to move. Everything is connected together. Like I said, if he stopped anything, it'd be over. And that's very, very, very important to know. And you don't have to go fast. Obviously, for amateurs, the faster they go because they're not in sequence, the worse it's going to be. So it's just connecting everything and staying sequenced as you continue to move through the shot. So when I look at this, I know a lot. Well, it may not only instructors, but I know a lot of players, when they look at this, they'll either look at like an isolated move, they'll look at the hips, or a player will look at the hands or the club head, or they'll look at the shoulders or whatever. And what I tell everybody to look for when you're doing this stuff is these three things. So you got the shoulders, the hands, and the hips. Watch how they move. There is no, you know, if you're watching that, there is no, like, the hips go first, and the shoulders, and the arms, like you see, like if some of you have studied kinetic linking or haven't, it doesn't really matter. But I can tell you that everything is wired together. The only reason why it looks like that is because the club head is behind. It's the furthest thing from the golf ball. So when you see, if you look from the hips are the closest, then you look at the shoulders, and you look at the club, and that's the reason why you have it where the club head looks like it. If you measurably do it in a 3D format, yeah, it's going to be hips, shoulders, you know, hands, club head. That's not how you. I can guarantee it's not how you should think. You should think as soon as you get here that everything is wired together, and that you're fighting that, you know, the club head staying up and it's staying behind, and the body circling like it's supposed to. And I'm going to stop it one more time. We're going to go one more time here and about halfway down. So a lot of players will they'll start in their training. They'll get pretty good, you know, maybe not that deep with the shaft. So, you know, they'll have, you know, that's a pretty big angle. But, you know, they'll get it in this, they can get it into this ballpark, say right in here with the shaft being up a little bit more. It won't be kind of as shallow as that. But they can get it up where the club head's up and it's behind, and they've got, their body's not in sync with it, but they've got the club up and behind. But what'll happen is right before, as they're firing into impact, this right hand, if you will tip out and over. So it'll try, and that'll cause the shaft to tip, the head, excuse me, the sweet spot to tip out and over, and the shaft, the lose stability of the middle of the shaft. And so what'll happen is, find this. So the middle of the shaft will do the same thing, but it's more of a spiral. So it'll be, it'll try to, when I say you lose stability of the middle of the shaft, that shaft is, let me see if I can find my freelance line here. It'll try to curve out and spiral like that. It's not a good line, but it's working. Oh, let me try it one more time. There we go. It's working that way. That shaft will start to rotate out and tip over too quickly, and then again you could have most of your downswing that looks really good. You might even have it to the baseline, and as soon as you tip that shaft outward with the right hand, this hand right here, or you let the elbow fly out and away and get over the top of the left elbow, if you even flinch right there where you spin out and try to hammer it with your hips or something like that, even last second, there's so many things you can do, and that's why all of our training is to keep everything in sequence in this area right here. And so when you come through, if you look, he has stability in the middle of the shaft right here, which is the most important. And so that means he's using everything as one unit. He's an amateur would be using the tip of the club and flipping it that way, over flipping it. And then a lot of times they'll try to fix it by over dragging the handle that way, trying to, you know, where you take the handle, and that's more of a down or a face-on view would help you with that, understand that. But they'll push those hands out forward like that to try to fight it, and then again they still lose the stability of the middle of the shaft and the directional plane through the hit. And so you want that stability through the middle of the hit, and that all comes from, again, what I believe and see every day. It's from getting stable in the top here, and then connecting and continuing to unwind just like that right there with the three communicators. But also if the shoulders lower on plane like that, it'll help take out a lot of this face rotation through the shot. But the biggest thing is really as you're working the right shoulder down. Put the line back up here so you can see it. So as you're working that right shoulder down to where it's supposed to go on playing with the ball and through, you just have to be really careful that you're not tipping the shaft out this way. Because it's very easy to do, because what'll happen is players will try to slam that right shoulder, it's a little bit high, but they'll try to slam it this way. And so the first movement is that way. If you watch the sequence of the shoulder, I think that's probably the most important. It's unwinding the whole time. And that's why you see why it looks really open through the hit right here. That's not because all of a sudden he got up here and he snapped it like this. He got up here and he took his time. He was unwinding. The sweet spot was up in the air, it was behind, and everything is connected together. So by the time he gets through impact, there's going to be a lot of rotation, but he's not trying to rotate like that hard. It's just because of that he's in sequence so well. He's moving slower. His body is in more connection and is actually moving slower than you'll see that the amateurs will move in. And an amateur at impact, they will have, they'll be like that. Their hips are completely square and their shoulders are closed, or whatever it may be. But usually that's what you'll see is the hips are square and the club's flipping around and they're not moving at all. And they're trying to spin their hips like crazy. Whereas if they would just get up here and then get that slowdown effect, where they could collect, they felt everything collect. Then when they unwind really slowly, it turns into where it looks like a lot of, openness through the ball and all that. But that's an illusion where people look at that by pictures, or they see pros swing and they break them down through impact, and they look at this image and they go, oh, I got to snap my hips. And if you snap your hips like that from the top of the swing, good luck. That's all I can say. Good luck, because you will not play good golf doing that ever. And so you have to respect the sweet spot. So wherever the sweet spot's at, your body's going to move along with it. And the hips are always opening, but it's just they're not opening faster than your club's closing down either. As your club's unwinding, your hips are unwinding, your shoulders are unwinding, everything's connected. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is open that up for some questions, and then we can kind of go along, show you some more players if we need to do that as well. But I'm sure there's some questions. So if you do, just you can say it on here, or you can chat them. You can type it in by chat, either way. We've got several on here. Anybody got any questions?
How you doing? This is Eric.
Matt, when
I heard somebody.
This is Eric.
Yeah, go ahead, bud.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. You?
I had a quick question. When I go from the float, you notice on one of the calls you said I shift my head, I sway.
If you could talk louder on there, maybe just our microphone on our end. I'm not sure, but I can't really hear you that well.
You can't hear me? Okay.
If you could just talk louder, it would make a big difference.
Is that better?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Okay. I notice when I get to the squat move and I'm squatting, for some reason I'm not centered. I'm moving, I'm shifting, I'm swaying over instead of shifting my weight to my lead side. In what zone can I fix that as I make that transition?
Well, so yeah, the sinking move. Let me get a face on so we can show you this. Okay, so this is Dustin Johnson. So basically, when you're in the float zone, all you're trying to do is go straight down. Like he's already in it right now. And for an amateur, what you'd be doing, typically an amateur, what's going to happen is you're going to be moving that way. And so you're trying to get to your left side too fast. So it's the worst thing you can do. The faster you get to your left side, the faster you're going to end up on your right side. Because what will happen is you'll start leaning with everything, your legs or whatever's leaning, everything starts leaning left, and the next thing you know, at impact, you're going to have to bail out big time and end up over on your right side. And so the float zone, all there is, it's a sinking motion, and it's not a squat, that's for sure. Because a squat, when I think of a squat like a drop squat, basically that's a kind of a violent action, you know what I mean? You're just dropping down, whereas in this it's a gradual sinking, just like the slowdown effect is. So the slowdown effect is going through. You're going, if you can picture this, it's just going as you're watching these frames. It's just watch his hands. There's a sequence that it's going through. It's not like you just stop and then you slam the club down again. It's going through the slowdown effect, and then it's moving slow, and then it starts to pick up its acceleration. On the legs are the same way. So the legs, what you want is in right here, he's starting to grip the ground and go straight down into his legs. Whereas an amateur, you can see how disciplined, his rotation's really stopped right there, but he still stayed right into his legs here, both legs. So I've said a lot of times he stays in his rotation. So he stays into his backswing rotation. And then this club, that's where it comes back to the sweet spots over here. Then you've got the shoulders, and then you've got the hips, and they have got to get on the same page again. And if your body is going an amateur, I can tell you, if they're leaning this way hard, or they are, pulling this. I'll try to draw another bad line probably, but they're trying to pull that shoulder out and around, and pull this club out and around, over the top like we've talked about. Nothing good's going to happen. So what you have to do is you have to just stay into this posture and let the club settle in. So as he's settling into his legs first, straight down, the club will start to slow down as it is. And once it slows down and he's got the club fully collected, the sweet spot's loaded, the handle's loaded, and the core and the butt is loaded, he can just unwind in a circle as we talk about. So now he can start to unwind, if you will. He'll unwind this way. Well, lines aren't working. Everything's working this way. Everything will work in that circle we talk about. So, but what happens is if you try to get to the top and then just spin your hips, like what people see this, they see that where he's turned through the shot, so they just try to spin out of it. That won't work. You actually got to slow down, collect it, and then everything is just wired in together. And that is the best way I can answer your question. It's lack of stability in transition. It's probably too quick, and the wrist, if you notice how stable his wrists are here in transition, it's not, his wrists aren't flopping around, so they're not, they're not breaking down this way, and they're not really cocking or anything like that. They're very, even though they're supple, they're very stable. So as he floats, there's some bending to his wrist, obviously, in his swing. All of them do it, but there's a softness to it, and it's stable. And then he can unwind, and everything never stops unwinding. But you see, when players will see, especially the driver, is a little more open than that, they'll try to snap their hips from right here and get open, or they think they see how much weight he has on his left side here, and they try to get all that weight on their left side from the top of their swing. And it's not designed to do that. You're not trying to get all your weight on your left foot from the top of the swing. What you're doing is you're going to unwind slowly, and everything will be in sequence with each other, and through the gradual momentum, everything will be open through impact with your body slightly, and everything will be forward and slightly, except your head. And then the motion will continue. It's a gradual momentum, and so I would bet every dollar I've got it's lack of stability. And I guarantee if you came to a golf school, first thing I'd say, your head's moving forward in transition, or your legs are spinning too hard in transition. That would be guaranteed, and it would be the exact same thing. But all you do, it's a really actually a simple fix. If you let everything slow down and collect, and then unwind where everything is together, you'll start to feel what I'm talking about. Some people have to come to a complete pause at the top, and that's where you see guys like Jordan Spieth and Matsuyama and Patrick Reed and great ball strikers where they actually come to a pause. It's not kind of a pause; it's a freaking pause, and there's a reason for that. And all that is so they can get those their brain wired into the sweet spot in the two primary body parts that I talked about, which would be the upper body and the lower body. And then they can just unwind through the shot gradually. If your club breaks down, flops down here, you cock your wrist really hard or in the transition, and you lean this way with your upper body or your lower body or both, in the transition zone, impact's going to be ruined. You may save it around where you play a little bit of golf, but in general, an amateur is not going to understand how to, and even if you did understand how to save it, you're still playing so manipulated, you're not playing to your full potential. So, but it would start with stability.
Are there any drills that I can, because I can see it. It
Yeah, on the
doesn't feel
site,
like I'm doing it, but when I record my
yeah,
swing.
as you see on the site, if you copy, like we talk at the mimicking, like just on the private site, I mean, it's there. I mean, if you
That one
you
is,
copy the
I've
motions,
seen the
I
one
can
with the
assure you, if you send me a video back and you're doing the downswing like I'm demonstrating you supposed to do the downswing, you won't be having this, you won't be calling in and asking any more questions on this, I can assure you.
See, and that's what I'm saying. When I do it, right, I guess is when I'm training, I don't see it, right? But then, like I usually.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but you need to use you need to use video because you'll eventually down the road you'll need to use the best computer you got is your brain, but right now you need to use a little help, and so you need to use video to help you when you're doing the drills. You should take the drills that I'm teaching you how to do so you can see that, and you got to use them and look at your own video and self correct, because if you just swing and you just look at it and swing, you could do that 20 more years and it's going to look the same. You could watch every video I've got or anybody else's and it's still going to be the same. But I'll tell you this: if you watch your videos and if it looks the same, it is the same. I mean, and there's a point where, and it won't be right now, but there's a point where I'm going to tell you, forget the video. You got enough internal feel now. You need to let video go and go tee it up. But you need to use your iPad, reverse that iPad like I talked about, put it on the ground or your iPhone or whatever it is, or any camera device, and really study your videos and your drills and see, because if your drills are right, your swing's going to start becoming right. I can assure you that. No doubt about it.
See, that's where I'm at right now. When my drills are right, I'm using the iPad, I'm going through the drills, and it looks fine. And then what I do is before I go play, that's when I try to work on the internal and kind of feel it without my iPad. Right before I go to play, I do the warm-up thing you told me to do, for 30 minutes, going through everything. And then I hit maybe seven irons. I hit 3 hybrids and 3 drivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I noticed what I started doing was filming my session right before I go to play. And I'm swinging. I'm not swinging when I'm using the iPad, but I'm swinging once I get to my warm-up sessions before I go play. And then when I go play, I still notice some slicing, and I'm like,
yeah. So what you have to do what you're doing is you're going and doing air swing training, which is not what I would really recommend right now. Like I was saying, I want you to go to the range and hit, hundreds of short shots, and
right.
I don't really want you doing air swings right now, like I talked about last time in our session. I want you to go to hit short shots with your 56, 60 degree and hit thousands of them. And if you're training, I know you're trying to really train on your game and all that, but air swings aren't necessarily going to do it for you. It's going to be going out there, taking your 56, your 60, and mastering it, the 10-yard scale, 10 to 100. So if you can't hit it 10 yards straight, like we said last week, compression, initial start line, trajectory, and ball control, there ain't no way you're going to be able to hit it 100 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, or 100 yards. So it goes to
now
that.
those shots to cut you up, but those shots,
Yeah.
I'm doing those maybe about, I would say, 200 balls a day,
Yeah.
20 to 50 a month, right?
Yeah.
And then, because I practice 2 hours before I play. do the short shots, 200 ball, then I do the mimic for a half hour, and then I go play. I go walk. I'll do this every day. And I
Yeah,
notice I'm like 20 or 50 shots. I'm not feeling it. Everything is perfect. I'm feeling everything. But when I go to
I bet your
zone 4 and
perfect standard
5,
is a lot different than mine. I would bet you every dollar I've got right now in the blind that, and watch the videos because I talk about that where guys are hitting shots out there and they think, look, hey, I'm hitting these 20 and 50-yard shots pretty good. I'm probably fine. And I bet you money right now, every dollar I've got, that you're not hitting your 20-yard shot with max compression, perfect start line. You might have the start line, you might even have the trajectory, but I guarantee your ball control is not the same, and I guarantee you your compression's not at max. If it was, it would transfer.
right,
Guarantee it.
out of 20, I've skill out of 20, I'm only at about out of 20, I'm probably maybe at 8. I could feel 8 was like
Yeah, I'm gonna
that's what
say it's
matters
4
to
on
me.
my scale or 0. Like I'm now, you got to realize I'm talking about what's perfect. Like your max potential, you're probably giving yourself a little bit more credit than you deserve. And I talk about that on the website, on the private website. Like, look, man, I'm telling you, guys will hit it at their target and they'll go, I'll count that. But if you watch somebody like, I'll do it, even me, you let me go out there and hit it and you're hitting it, you're going to hear a totally different sound on the ball and you're going to see a different flight and a trajectory and you're going to have to be scratching your head going, wait, I want to hit it like that. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about. It's a whole different level. And it's
yeah,
not even
yeah,
20 yards, man. I'm telling you, it's at 10 yards. I'm telling you this at 10 yards. It's that different.
right.
And you can't I can't tell you how important it is to not overlook that because I'm not saying your sway's probably still going to be, it's actually probably in there on the 10-yard shot. Just about every
Hmm.
bad move you'll do, it'll pop up at 10 yards. If somebody's over the top 10 yards, I'll see it. I'll see the mini version of it. If it's 20 yards, I really see it. And so you're probably
Right.
wobbling around in there. But the one thing I would tell you to do is, first of all, make sure that you go back and watch those videos I talk about with mastering the 10-yard shot to a 100-yard shot, and watch how detailed I am on it and how much I talk about. And also, if that doesn't work for you, just listen to the sound of the ball. And if yours doesn't sound like that,
Yeah,
you make it sound like that. And if you just make the ball sound like that, that's not it either. The club to ball to ground relationship. That's not it either because it still is start line. If your ball's 3 feet off in a 10-yard shot, good luck with your driver. 3 feet. And guys will look at it and they'll go, look, hey, I'm just hitting it 3 feet left and right with a 10-yard shot. And I'm going, man, take that out 200 yards and look and see what that is. Because what it is you lose
right, right.
shaft control and face control. And then trajectory is a big part of that too. And then also listening and watching the club, listening to the club, but also paying attention to how much the club is going into the ground or not at all into the ground. So the ball, the
Yeah,
compression, so to speak, but also it's not just about compression. It's how the how the club is reacting to the grass and to the ball and that torque relationship. Is it running up the face? Are you digging and dragging and punching on it? Or are you picking it, clipping it, and not, or are you getting that thump and the ball staying squashed to the face? And then trajectory will be related with that, and then you've got ball control. Ball control is really important because a guy could have the first three things, and if you're prematurely accelerating or punching, you can have the start line that looks good, you can have the compression that sounds great, you can have the trajectory, everything's in line, and the punch is going to cause you to typically can cause you actually to pull a little bit, which would kind of go against the start line. But for one thing for sure, it's going to go further, and that's not really a good thing.
hmm,
And if somebody's
Hoagie.
decelerating,
okay,
too much with that, which in our training was almost impossible, obviously it would affect it a little bit that way. But there's a point when you would go into where you're hitting live shots where you're not in decel training, and we want that although the miles per hour obviously it's speeding up because it's a distal end speed moving on the outside perimeter of the body. You're not trying to speed it up, and so that ball control comes into play on that as well. So when I talk about grading your shot, I talk about as soon as you hit a shot, you hit a 10-yard shot, you're going to do the 10-yard, what we call a 10-yard scale. You're going to hit 10 balls, 10 yards, and the first thing you should do as soon as you hit that first shot is you grade it. Compression, you start with compression, the initial start line of the ball, the trajectory, and ball control. And that's the first thing. And like I said, the compression is going to pop up. It'll pop up in a 10-yard shot, but you'll start to see a difference in that 20-yard shot. And
Ball control is one more time.
ball controls two things. So there's two dimensions to it. It's the distance. So it's going. It's like if you're trying to hit a 20-yard shot, it's going 20 and not 21 or 19. It's going 20. And then the second dimension of that is rotation of the ball. So because when you hit a ball in the air, so if I'm hitting a 7-iron, I'm going to hit it 180 or whatever it is. You hit it.
Right.
You got your compression first. You've got your start line second. The start line of the ball. The third thing you got is the trajectory, and then did it curve left or right or left, or did it jump or did it come up short? So those are the things that's ball control.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so if you inch warm up, that's what the scale's there for, because if you the scale's there to trick you into building a full swing without you thinking about it. That's where you do the 10-yard scale. Where guys will mess up is they'll go, maybe they'll start at usually 20 to, or actually 30 to about 70, and they'll hit about 10 20-yard shots or 30-yard shots. They'll hit 100 of them 70 yards or 50 yards, and they hit them decent, and then they go straight to the 7-iron, and they get very average, decent results. But if the players that have been in this, and there's a lot of them on here tonight, if they are, you're more than welcome to chime in either through chat or you can chime in through audio. But they'll tell you that if you spend all your time just chipping and pitching around the greens, the little hook and runs, not cut shots and all that stuff, but hook and runs and shots that have compression and forward spin, and you hit lots and lots and lots of them, your hands, you'll have automatic hands, and you will hit it better. You will become a better ball striker day in, day out.
Yeah.
And you still have to work.
That's all I can do.
Like the frame of your swing still has to be different. We know that. But I wouldn't do the iPad air swing so much right now. If you're seeing your golf swing and you're seeing if you're going from air swings, and I think this is important for everybody, if you're going from air swings and then which is pretty functional, I think it works with most people. But the most functional thing you got is whenever you hit a ball. Like when that ball's down and you hit it, that's true function. So if you're seeing yourself move around and you're swaying, or sliding or whatever you're doing, like, where you outrun it and the club's going that way and your body's going this way and you have that shear effect where you lose control of the sweet spot, then you have to dial that in a live setting. So what I mean by that is you would still do that scale that I talk about, and then you would video yourself as you're doing it, and you would video at the end with a 7-iron and a driver, and if you see yourself leaning this way, you just have to keep exaggerating. The bottom line is with it, you just have to keep exaggerating until it's gone. There's no you don't want a training aid or any of this stuff or any of that stuff, or kind of try to just eliminate it. It's the best thing I can tell you. Right. Same thing as somebody that cast it. Like I have a player that from Houston that he's turned into a really good player. He's got a testimony on our website, and but he still does cast a little bit. But I mean, so the club would be in this position here, and if that just unwinds and stays the same amount, well then all of a sudden it becomes like a ball and chain, effect through the shot. And he's at the point now where he's got so good with his hands. I mean, he's casting the club about where, when I say cast, the wrist, the club would, the face would release out pretty much like this. But he's so good with his hands, he hits it good. And so my point is with that, you can be a hell of a player and still make things where they're not perfect if you have really good hands and great timing. But he knows, and I know too, that if he has, I don't like to say angle, but I can tell you if he maintains what he's got here and everything unwinds, there's no doubt he can hit it better. And so in his mind, he has to exaggerate that a lot. I mean, he has to feel it, and when he does it, he can do it. But it's where guys sometimes won't change is they don't trust that exaggeration. It feels too awkward. So it's like if I told you everybody on here it's right-handed today to go eat left-handed for a week, they're going to probably quit the first day because of how awkward it is. And it's the same thing with this. I mean, it's just so awkward for Dustin Johnson, it's not because it's natural for him. But for somebody that cast it, literally, that originally he would cast that club in this part of the transition that much or more first two frames of the downswing. And now he's literally, 75% better, but he's not 100%, and he just has to keep fighting. So it doesn't, and it could be over the top It could be you name the fault when it comes to that. And that's what video's for, is to exaggerate it, the feel, until you start to see it where you want it, and then you got something on the frame part of it. Doesn't mean you're going to. You could fix the frame. You could be stable in transition, and we could be talking next week and you say, look, I'm still not hitting it where I want to be, but I'm not swaying or sliding. And I would say two things. Well, that's the frame for you. Your hands aren't any good yet, but your frame's better. And where you're at right now in your swing, you do need your frame to be better because it's affecting your hand-eye timing. But also your goal right now is to get your hand to club head relationship as good as you can possibly make it, which should be everybody's goal.
Gotcha.
Two different things.
Exactly. Now, will that left hand only drill? Well, for me, it's right hand. Will that left hand only drill?
Yeah, that's really good for chipping. Jim Franks, I don't know if Jim's on here or not. Jim, if you're on here, can you text me? Or just say,
hey, Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead and fire away with that. Everybody on here probably knows who you are because I've talked about you all the time. But
famous Jim, infamous Jim.
Famous Jim.
Yeah, I suck.
I don't buy that. But I'm sure you're pretty happy with Ohio State last night.
Yeah, they did all right.
So
we'll see. They got all those top-ranked SEC teams, and everybody's going to be talking about the weak Ohio State schedule, yada, yada. But we'll just see what happens at the end of the year.
I played at Wisconsin, so I know the feeling.
Yeah. Hey, so Jim, he was asking about you probably heard it, about the left-hand drill. And, you and I have had, especially a couple conversations this week about tech by text. So if you want to fire away with what you do with the left and the right, you go ahead.
Well, one of the things that helped me a lot, and I actually got it from some guys on Secret in the Dirt, was drilling with just one hand, because if you're like me, if anybody's like me, I'm not very athletic. I'm not like really good with sports in general. I never was. And so when it came to golf, I needed to learn to be more athletic, to be any good at it, to hit the ball far enough and all of that. So I had to learn how to meld the two sides of my body, the left side, right side, and really it's all one in method, and what we're all shooting for is to have one good functioning motion. But you kind of have to train late to get started if you're, bad like me. So what helped me a whole lot was to just hit balls with one hand. And at first I couldn't hit a ball with one hand 10 feet any good at all to save my life. I kept working at it. I learned how little I needed to do and just how important it was to keep my right elbow in front of my hand and the club head behind my hands, and so that helped me, get my right side in order. And the same way, when it came to the left side, there's another set of rules that you have to learn on being able to hit the ball with your left hand. And then you put the two together, and all of a sudden you can start to learn how to make a one fluid motion that Matt teaches, and all of a sudden the karate and the Tai Chi and everything just makes perfect sense. And when you can work in a mirror and start to do Tai Chi forms the way Matt can do them, I mean, even to where you just don't laugh at yourself when you try, then you're making some progress. That's my take. And like I say, I suck, so take it for what it's worth.
Club champion sucks. That's probably why he's club champion now. So, to answer that as well on my end, you have to be real careful with, one-arm swings. I've been around one-arm swings for a long, long time. They've been taught for, way before I was ever born, one-arm swings. Where you have to be really careful is overtraining with it and hitting too long of shots. I think that both hands, to a certain extent, aren't really designed to swing and hit a golf ball with just one arm when it's a certain length. When you get to, if it's a 20 or 30 yard shot, yeah, but what'll start happening is two things will pop up. You can really get a serious elbow injury. If you have elbow injuries right now, don't do the one arm swing. It'll trash it. Either one. It also will typically, if you watch somebody do a one arm swing, what'll happen, what we find is if you watch it, all you have to do is use your own eyes. Their posture will be really weak and lazy, and it doesn't look. Their posture goes to shit. But obviously you can tell they're building a little bit of definitely you can see it that they're building a little bit better timing. There's no doubt about it. So where I like to, and on our private site where I teach it at is just raw chipping. I don't do it really in the ball striking chipping. I stay away from it because I'm afraid of injuries. I've had my own personal injuries from when you work under Paul Berkeley, like I worked under Paul Berkeley in training. It was left arm only. There was no right arm in his methodology, even though I believe there is left and right bilateral. But you make so many left arm swings that you just trash your elbow eventually. So you just have to be really careful with that. But I do it in chipping and I do it in small swing before the club really ever gets, before it ever starts to rise up and get a little longer, maybe a small zone 3. But I don't really like to do it in like a zone 4, zone 5, because one, you're going to have a hard time. It's not really true functional, right? Because you're not even really in your posture. Your right side's not really functioning. Then when you put your right side on, your left side's really not functioning. But what I will say is that the relationship you have to the sole of the club and the ground and the ball and to the hand will start to get better, especially in chipping. And so I definitely, in a good place to do it is in a bunker where you're not hitting balls, but just practicing one arm swings in the bunker because it doesn't have the hard resistance underneath it, so it won't hurt your elbows as bad. And that's where we've had a lot of success teaching guys. I've got some videos on that where it's just working on the timing contact point. But there's no doubt we've seen miracles teaching guys how to just swing with just the left hand only and then the right hand only, going back and forth and putting both on, but literally never hitting it more than maybe 10 yards, 15 yards max. You really don't have to because
I agree, Matt. That's all I ever did with that was under 50-yard shots. I never tried to blast the ball like that. Just working on coordination and body timing.
Yeah, they said Stewart used to be able to hit his 5-iron with just his left hand only. He could hit his 5-iron 185 on a rope. Payne Stewart. So, yeah. Yep. With just his left hand only, and you can really see it. I mean, the guy he used his left and right side, but most golfers are very strong on that lead side, because it is the pulling side and the right hand's the pushing side and all that stuff. But I don't really try to get too technical about it. I could, but it's just like that's not really the goal. It's just both sides have different, like Jim said earlier, they have different functions. They're not, they're both, but really you don't really have control of that. I mean, you need to know which one's your screw up side. If you're over the top of it, you're prematurely pulling with your left side. I can bet every dollar I've got with that. Or it's a mental mindset that you're tipping the club out. In transition, you're trying to get use the club head too much, so it pulls your left side out, whatever it may be. Or if you're a right side, if you're snapping the hips at the top of the swing with your right hip, that will break the hip.
Yep.
That
was the big thing for me, Matt, was snapping the hips and breaking the right elbow relationship, and that was really where a light bulb went on for me.
Yeah. So I'll pull up. So what you got up here in transition like this, basically you were trying to just kind of snap the hip right like that.
Yep. And the right hip and the right elbow. From the thing that Hunter does that I see is that he marries that right elbow where he wants it so early, and then boom, it just never changes from there. And from there, the hands, the elbow, the hips, the core are all turning in unison, and the right elbow or the right shoulders working down through the shot. Boom, never changes.
That's the 4 essentials right there. Where we were talking about earlier, I know, let's see, Grant sent me Grant sent me something. We've been in contact as well, and Grant's got a really good swing, and he's where, I don't know if Matthew is on here or not, but we're going to go over his stuff here in a little bit too. Let's see. Yeah, so Grant tips what happens. with Grant is we were talking about in transition. I'll come back to that. Okay. But so this elbow is where this, when it shoots out this way, and if you can picture it rolling over, I don't have anything I can really draw real well, but when it rolls over this way. Jim, you still there on that?
Yes, sir.
So you would, this elbow would roll out and tip, and that would cause the whole shaft to tip over. And that's so common. I mean, not everybody does it, but just about everybody does it. Where they'll do it, like you'll start, the thing that's crazy about golf, and I'll just say, it just is a tough game. There's no easy way to do it. But I can tell you, I've seen guys that, and they're probably on here, they'll get it right in here. I think Grant had some of this possibly, where, everything is in here nice, but even right there, you're not good to go. That's why when you say guys, well, if you're here, he's going to hit a great shot. I'm going to tell you, that is not true. All you got to do is put pressure on. If he's got anxiety, if he's scared, if there's a lot of things that can factor it. If everything keeps moving at the same rate, he's good to go. But if he takes this, tips that out, let me try that one more time. If he tips that anywhere towards the ball that way, rolls, if you can picture just rolling the right hand over, if he rolls this right elbow over, if he rolls that right shoulder over or pulls that left shoulder back, there's so many things that could happen. He could get here and then all of a sudden he could snap a little bit with his hips, a la Tiger right now, sometimes on some shot. And that you're right here, you're perfect, but that everything would affect that strike right there, even though you're literally a millisecond from the ball. And so what we try to get everybody to do is just get in sync. It's just sync it up. We're trying to teach you to stay in sync and sync and sync. Where, like Jim was talking about, the elbow stays, the club head's up and behind as we talk about. But from here, everything's in communication. There's not one outrunning the other, but you never stop moving. As soon as you stop moving one, or if you get and try to prematurely, whack one or whatever with your right hand or shoulder or hips or whatever, that's it. So keep the torque and keep moving. That's the key. So I think that's probably a good. I think that answered hopefully for a lot of you guys, because you have to watch. There's times where you'll get your video. I can assure you, if you're a player and you're getting your body and club, if you're looking anywhere like this, you may not be playing good golf. I'm not going to be the one that says, "Oh yeah, you got it. You're scratch. You're a day away from scratch." I'm not going to say that, because I still believe that timing trumps everything. But I will say this: if your frame is that good, you're on your way. And if you get rounds of golf in and do some things to calm the mind and do some other things like with the Tai Chi where you work in the body, this will start to happen for you. If you can start to get, where the club's up behind and the body's circling and it's connected together, you're on your way. I can't say you're going to have it that day. You can't really ever tell anybody when they're going to have it, but you start to see signs like, okay, it's coming. And it's just a matter when you get those automatic hands. And that's why I talk to everybody so much about the chipping and pitching, because you can't have, it's like putting, you can't have your hands too developed. It's impossible. Your hands can't be, in your relationship with the club ball ground and your hands, they can't be too good. So when your frame gets really good, your hands will be really good, and you'll play the best golf of your life. And you'll put a lot of pressure on your putting, because you're going to hit a lot of shots in there close. So I'm trying to read these chats as we're going. If anybody has any more questions, just fire away.
I had one more in terms of stabilizing.
Okay.
I noticed that you have a little ball between your legs. You said it's good for stabilizing the lower body. Would it be good to use that when I'm due to 10 yards?
I lost you. I'm sorry, man. I lost you there for a second.
I was saying the ball between my legs video you have there.
Yes.
For stabilizing.
Yes.
I was wondering if, you mentioned over-exaggeration. I was wondering if I can use that on top of the ball between my legs as I do the 10-yard shot.
Yeah, you can. Where the ball between the legs will screw you up a little bit is that it doesn't really allow your right side to function like it's supposed to. But
okay.
It's not going, but you're already trained. You know the right way to move through the ball. Where I mean, you're working on the stuff to move through the ball the correct way, like Jim was talking about. When you get to that baseline I was showing with Hunter Mahan, everything just connects together and they're welded together. Even though it's not tension, they're just moving everything together. And that's how the right side's supposed to move through. So you know you're working on that. But if you put the Swiss ball in between the legs, and I would recommend it. Swiss ball is something you can do with Tiger Woods all the way down to Mr. Smith at 70 years old. You'll get better when you put a Swiss ball between your legs. There's no doubt. You'll increase your mobility over time. You'll increase your stability with your hips. You'll strengthen your hips and your glutes and the inside portions of your legs. It's going to help you stabilize better for a strike. But it will limit you a little bit. But yeah, I would tell you to do it. And then in the winter, it's a great winter drill. So if you see our winter training, I got, like when Wes Short, when he was training for the Q school, I don't know, it's a couple years back or whatever, and it was his first year to go to Q school, and he set a tournament scoring record.
I saw that video.
Yeah, he played. So we had a month. We had to prepare for that event, and it was a big deal for him. He just lost his PGA Tour card because he's 49 years old. He'd been off the tour for 8 years with horrible injuries, everything relating from cancer all the way through back injuries, and I could name you probably 15 more. But so he plays out on the tour. He doesn't play well enough to get his card. He was 49, so he's going to play the senior tour really anyway. And but we had a few months, but he took a month off just to kind of heal up from the tour. He wasn't feeling that great, and he comes back in. I guess actually I take that back. It was about 2 months in, and we started to train, and we did kettlebells, we did Tai Chi every day, and then the last month we did meditation and visualization. And we did them. Look, man, 5 days a week, and that's including the Swiss ball, the band work, and all those videos you saw. That was before to the Q school. Really didn't hit a whole lot of balls. Didn't play a whole lot. Played some. Played his normal routine, but not more than normal. But he just kept saying it every week, man. I'm just hitting it. I'm just getting better. I'm getting better and getting better. And a big part of that too. Everything was working. I talk about the 5 mountains, but it was definitely, you could say, the physical side was getting stronger. His mental side was getting stronger. His emotional durability, which you need to have that on the course, be able to take it when you're not playing well and be able to give it out when you are playing well. And he just had all those, and the intuition, which is we'll come to here in just a second, which making good decisions while you're out there and trusting yourself. Because Wes is one of those that in big tournaments, he'll short side himself all day long. He'll make stuff that he'll say it too. It's just stupid, where you shouldn't do it. And he'll do it, and he'll pay for it. And so anyway, we did all this training going into this event, and he said, after he shot 20 under for the event, he set a tournament, record or whatever. He got his card, everything was great, but he said, it was the mental training. He goes, my body was so strong, I felt like Superman, but then I also had the tournament one before I got there. I'd just visualized every day, and he goes, he said, the first 2 weeks, I thought I was just kidding myself. He goes, I just thought this is just, I don't even know why I'm doing this. This is kind of goofy. But then all of a sudden he started to believe in it. He's like, you know what? I think I am going to win this tournament. I am going to win this tournament. And so he had it won, and he said, in his head, and he goes, I went out there, and he goes, I did stuff I don't do. There's times where I know I would never hit a 3-wood on this hole, and I wasn't at the event, so I don't know. But he said there's times where there's no way I'd lay up over here. And he goes, I was playing, and he goes, I wasn't even in control of it. He goes, I just was doing it. He goes, I just knew that was the way to play the game. And he goes, I don't ever remember my entire life ever playing golf like that, where I played the right way. And I can vouch for that. I've seen him play where I'm just going, scratching my head, going, Lord, I have no idea what he's thinking here. But, it's just that kind of player, Phil Mickelson type style golfer. But it changed for him. And so that's where I think in the winter you can get into more of that kind of stuff. In the summer, in this time of season, you want to play as many holes as you can, work your short game, and try to keep a calm head and all that. But in the winter, you can do more cool things, in my opinion. You can do more of the Swiss ball training, the kettlebell training, get really golf specific, really take the biggest weaknesses you have, the mental parts of your game, and get fired up for not changing your golf swing, but changing your scores. I think that's the biggest thing is I don't care about anybody changing their golf swing. I could care less about that. I care about their scores. And, that's a big deal. Most of the guys, I could ask everybody on a survey that comes to me the first time, and most of them would say scoring is never, nobody ever talks about it. I really want to be a low 70s or scratch shooter. it's like so distant to making their swing better and hitting the ball better. Like, and it's that should not be the first and foremost of your, you know, your goals. It should be the score and chip away at technique. That's just technique's just a small part of it. So, but go ahead.
I couldn't. I just got to say, Matt, on that, I just can't tell these guys enough. I mean, if they're here and they're in your system, then they have everything at their disposal to go out and win and play better than they ever thought they could. Just by doing the things that you said, that West did. And you do that. You go out there and you get the opportunity, and some great things can happen. This year I shot 1 over par in a frickin' tournament, and I shot 1 under for the first time in my life, and it was in a tournament on the second day because I had to tie the guy on the second day, and it just happened, and you just do those things, and you've got the groundwork here for these guys to do that, and they just have to believe in it, and they got to work really hard on all these little bitty things. There's nothing too small. There's no tiny part of this that isn't important enough to spend however long it takes to get it, because it's going to be different for each one of us. We're all going to have our own problems. I've got my tipping, my throwaway, and all of that, and everybody else is going to have their stuff, but you just got to focus on what it is for you and work on your own personal awareness. And then there's nothing more important than gaining that. That's all I got.
Yeah. And where you talked about it, and these guys already know it, but there's probably some new ones on here that haven't heard it. But Jim, he won his club championship this year, and Jim's one of those that's had plenty of lessons. Has been around the block and played golf for 30 years and never played. And he'll tell you, never played even close to what he's capable of. And but Jim started with me. I don't remember when. It was a year ago, 8 months ago, whatever it was. But I just know that he did everything I asked him to do. So it was all really on me in the system at that point. And there's guys on here right now that I've spent more time working with specifically and individually with than actually what I did with Jim. Because I told Jim, a lot of this is about the trial and error, and I'm not telling you not going to screw up. That'd be crazy. You're going to screw up. It's just you need to reflect, adjust, and evolve. Just like I tell everybody, you need to look at it and you refer back to the site, look at the videos, look at what you're doing, play the cat and mouse game a little bit, and then there's time to just go out and apply it. And you keep playing that game, there's just you will get better. I don't care who it is. It's whenever
guaranteed.
Yeah, if you go out and you bash balls all the time, you got no chance. If you're a ball basher, if you're a scientific lab rat, you can know everything about nothing, is what I like to say. You don't want to be that. You want to be an athlete. You want to be yourself. And you don't want to be, I get guys all the time that ask me, say, hey, what do you think about this guy's swing? He looks like your style. Look, all of them have their own style. I mean, I think everybody fits within what we teach. I don't think there's any player on the tour that I think that some do it maybe a little bit better, but it's really just about your own, and you got to find your way, because there's that circle of success. There's a million different ways to get into it, and the way you get into it is owning yourself. You gotta. There's a time where, and Americans, we're really pretty good at that. Is there's a time to just freaking bully your way into the damn thing, and make it. You get in there, however you got to get in there. But if you dink around and try to become a lab rat, that's the fastest way to failure you can possibly be. And even though we're teaching, I have to teach technique in a way, because I do believe in technique. I just believe in the playing the game is so far more important. And you have to chip away at the techniques, and they're not going to change overnight, and it's not going to be miracles overnight. But I can tell you, if you're chipping away at it and playing and competing and trying to make yourself, a scratch player or a 68 plus 4 or 3, whatever it is, or even a 78 player, if you're a 90 shooter, you just have to. It's the goal of this program. What I'm teaching is not about technique. It's about getting you to play and play at a high level for your capability. So let's see, Greg Fogg. Greg, you on there? You might be on.
No, I'm here still.
Oh, are you? What's happening, man?
I'm just tuning in for the first time. This is really great stuff.
second place for club championship. He's going to win it next year.
Hey, congratulations, Greg.
Yeah, I shot one over in 2 days and got beat by 2. So.
Yeah.
Well, you should have played at my place.
Yeah, Greg's a really solid player. Nice golf swing. Plays here in Austin. Greg and I work together. Greg's been with me for a long time, man. We came out and trained fitness with us back in the day, and then actually he's been training on. You've really just been online now for what, 8 months? You think?
Maybe not that long. About 6 months though.
Okay. Yeah, he just does the stuff online, and we just play the little game where he'll send me stuff, I'll send him stuff, and so he knows what we do really well. And Greg was one of those that he's got a good story too. Everybody does probably, but I just known Greg for so long. But you know, he was one of those that hit so many range balls that he would tell you he was a range rat. He hit balls all day long. And I had to convince him somehow to just kind of turn that into short game work, and then we'll pick around at his frame of his swing and make it better as we go. But we had to get his hands better than his frame, and I think his game turned. And he could tell you more about it, but it really made a good turning point whenever he got his hands better.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's interesting because my best club typically in my bag is my driver. That tells you how many balls I've hit, right?
Yeah.
But what was really interesting is I played after working with Matt a while. I played with this ex-pro, and I was kind of beaten up on him this day. You know, he was a little bit out of shape and wasn't playing that well. And on one hole, I was I was kind of in a bind, and I just played it out to a safe spot so that I could get up and down from there. And he says, "Man, your game is so boring. I would have taken out my 4-iron and just tried to hook it around the trees just to get it on the green." But I mean, that's some of the stuff I learned was, you know, how to play the course, and you know how to get the scores down. And then so of course I beat him like a drum this year, but the guy really is an so that was fun. So yeah, but it's about the hands. For me, it's on the short game. You talk about 10 yards, you think about 36 feet. You know, it's one of the areas where you're not on your game. You've got to have that shot all day long. So
Yeah.
it's really helpful.
That wins or loses a tournament, or puts you in the last day, or you're 10 shots back.
Oh yeah.
So Greg, I know you had a question. Basically, losing a little bit of the angle, it looked like on the downswing, losing the release a little earlier than you like, and we'll go over that if you want to now.
Yeah. So it doesn't. Let me just say, I can probably make up for it on the shorter irons on the downswing, because you know, as you've said in your videos, everybody corrects on the downswing, but I've noticed it. I notice it more, or I get punished more on the longer irons, right? So I just want to make sure I'm not. I don't know if it's a timing sequence or what, or if I'm doing the sway that was mentioned earlier, but I do have sometimes I'll have a tendency to feel like I'm maybe overloading and I'm just releasing a little early and I'm not getting that crisp shot, you know.
Yeah. So I'm going to use Dustin Johnson. I probably got you actually in here somewhere, but I'm just going to use Dustin Johnson and pull up his swing here, and we're going to go over where I see the early release happen, and it does. I mean, there certainly is, and this goes back even all the way back to where I was talking with Eric. I mean, you can have like even the shots from 10 to 100 yards where you do have, let's say you have them mastered, and you can certainly, you know, you pull out your 7-iron, you hit it good, you hit your driver okay, and you hit your 3-iron okay, but you don't hit them to the level of that. But what my point is if you can master the 10-yard scale to a 100-yard scale, you're going to be really happy with your game. You're going to be like, you know, Greg's I don't know what his handicap is now, if it's a plus or scratch or what, but you're going to be at a level where, you know, you're playing some really good golf. And I think that's important to know. But then let's say you've got all that stuff down and all that, but you're still having these little issues, and that's what I'm going to do now. So if you go back, from What I'm going to do tomorrow too is I'm going to cut a video. I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to this video after tonight. Everything that's on here, all the questions in the chat, all the stuff on the chat, and I'm going to cut a video and email that video to everybody as well. So all the questions I want to demonstrate so you can see, because sometimes it's just hard, even on this format, it's really hard for me to show you what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna do that. So if you don't understand what it looks like by me doing this frame by frame, I think you'll really get it tomorrow. So I hope that. And so if you have questions tonight, fire them away. Is another thing. So when you can see, he's already got the club head. We know two things have already happened. The club head's behind his hands in his golf swing, and then it's up in the air. So he's already got it. Those two things. He's got every player you see. Really, it's very rare. I teach really every day and have forever. Everybody will have the club up in the air. That's lag. The club head is behind the hands and it's up in the air. So you have lag. Now it's just a matter of like, what the hell do you do with it? So I haven't ever seen a player that has the club. I guess I have, but I can't remember the last time where the club was pointing down below their hands where their hands was right there, and that was their backswing. Does that make sense? So everybody, they get the club back behind, so they essentially load it like you would a hammer or whatever. And that doesn't mean they're going to keep it loaded like you're supposed to. And that's what happens with like Greg. You know, he's got a beautiful backswing. But there's where I see an early release come from. Now, there's so many variations I could go on and on, but the mass majority of them, especially with better players, is where their upper body will start working this way, left, and this part is still going back. So they start leaning, and this is going back, and then what happens, they get too far. I'm going to move this forward so you can see. So what would happen in this situation, he doesn't do it, obviously. What would happen would be is their head would, if you can picture, be over here, or their legs more forward, and then this is starting to tip, the club head's starting to tip downward like that because they've got too much separation between their body. There's too much distance between their lower body and their head and the sweet spot, and so that's where a lot of that'll happen from. So because if you slide in your golf swing, if your body, let me go to impact. You get out in front of the golf ball. So if his head was right instead of being behind it, if his head was right here, you don't want lag in your golf swing. If you have lag in your golf swing and your head is right there, everything stays the same. You're going to hit a wedge underneath the golf cart, and your divot's probably going to be a foot deep. So what happens is somebody that leans in transition gets out in front of it too early. They subconsciously cast the club away to get the loft that they need and not dig the club in the ground and somewhat make the ball go straight to their target. And that's why it's so important to be stable in transition, like, you know, every player, where they allow everything to sync up and connect, and then they can start to unwind. Now, there's players that do that. That sync, like, so say they wait in here, and then if they wait in transition, everything slows down. Their weights went as they're leaving transition, it went straight down into their feet and not turn, and their club is slowed down and everything's good. If that has happened, then, and they've tipped the club, then it's only a wrist issue. You know, it's a club head to wrist issue. And so I'm going to lower this down a little bit more. You have where you can see the club head. You have there's two parts of the club that you have to understand. You have to understand the sweet spot, and you have to understand the hands. And if you understand those two, you hit the middle ground, which is the middle of the shaft. And if you get control of that middle of the shaft, if you have control of the middle of that shaft, you're in good shape. Now, if you can picture where his club is right now, if that club head, if his wrist stayed here and his club head tipped straight down, which is a form of release, most of you know that, he's lost the middle of the shaft. So he would have lost the stability of the middle of the shaft. Now, if he only pulls his wrist forward, so if he pulls this wrist forward, he doesn't have the middle of the shaft. He only has energy in the butt of the club, which is typically better than most players. But the best, like him, you know, he has both of them working. He has the hands are moving forward and the club head is moving forward, and he's got control of the middle of that shaft. As soon as if you're a caster, you have to tap into that one. If you know it, you've seen on video, okay, I'm losing it. you have to tap into that club trying to shoot away from the hands. You have to one tap it, you have to feel it, and then you have to fight that, right? I mean, everybody would tell you that. But the goal is you want to get control of the middle of the shaft, and if you tip that, you'll feel like all the energy is gone from the middle of the shaft. And so I would try to get you to tap into that with wedges, as we talked about earlier, where you stay a little more stable in transition, you get a little more stable here, and as you're unwinding, that you're feeling the middle of the shaft loaded, not just the hands are the sweet spot. For you, the tip will try to fire forward, as we know, a little bit, so it starts to tip away a little bit, and the hands will stop moving. So instead, try to get the middle of the shaft to be moving forward and exiting the way you want it to. And I'll show you that. It'll make more sense when I demonstrate the drill tomorrow, because this is something I'd love to be able to demonstrate right now, because it would make total sense. But to me, to where a player, hits their peak is whenever it's not so much about the handle or the head, even though that's what you want to be great with. When you become great with the handle and the head of the club, you'll truly have stabilization of the middle of the shaft. And that's what you want, because that's your resistance of torque and twisting of the face and all the things and how you exit. So anyway, it'll make a little more sense when I demonstrate that tomorrow. But did that answer your question in a way, Greg, or do we need to keep going on that?
It makes perfect sense to me, actually.
Yeah, it could be anywhere. Like if you lose this connection, we try to teach it where everybody. I mean, we know how hard it is to maintain all this stuff, even like that coming through the ball. But even right here, if you may not feel it sometimes, going back in here, even on a 50-yard shot that you're losing, it's tipping out. But even in here, if you're feeling that club that you're using the tip of the club, it's moving forward, and your handle is not moving with it. You'll feel like that backwards energy, like that flicking or flipping or whatever you want to call it. And the opposite goes if you're trying to over pull that handle and you're not releasing the head with it in a straight alignment, you'll get that over drag and get too deep of divots. It looks sometimes better on video, but is not better in reality. So that's where I demonstrate. There's some drills. I think there's a couple of drills. I need to go back and look, but if there's not, I'll put them up there. But on the website, most of you have probably seen them in either a private session, but where I grip the middle of the shaft. And the reason why I grip the middle of the shaft is so you can control it. You can start to feel if you are using more of the head of the club or the handle. And the goal is to use all of it, the whole thing, that kind of like that ball and chain. You don't want to be a big down cocker of the club like Sergio. That's not what we're trying to do, and we're not trying to get you to nobody really past it, but essentially release. We're trying to get you to use the middle of it for full stability. That'll give you the maximum width in the downswing. It'll give you spacing in the downswing, and if you can maintain that through the shot, that'll be your best fight against hooking and slicing and all that stuff. See, Lance had sent me a question here. Lance, are you on here, bud? My chat's not popping up. So let's see. Lance asked me a question. Let's see. Yeah, it's about moving in transition. So let's see. Okay, yeah, just thanks for the explanation. All right. Lance, if you have anything else, just shoot me a chat on here, and I'll answer it. Anybody else have anything?
Matt, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was like in mine. I feel that mine gets quite good, sort of down to the bottom, and then like my hands sort of throw the club out as I'm sort of waist high.
Yeah.
It sort of goes left a bit.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's my body gets a bit quick.
So,
or it's my hands trying to line it up in a different way or something.
Yeah. So James, we had you up on. Did you see the webinar I emailed to you last week?
The one where you had me on it?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Okay, cool. And I was telling the guy, even in that webinar, and I was telling the guys in that webinar that this player's really close to playing some really good golf. That he's not yet because his body is not in time with his club, right? And I think he shot me a text the next day, literally, or was it maybe it was that, I don't know if it's next day, maybe it was the next week or the same week or whatever it was. But you said that you had shot, I think, what was it, 1 over or something like that. You'd really been hitting the ball really well.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, with the movements you're making, you can see it. Like I said, the frame can be better, but it doesn't mean you're going to be playing better. It's just a matter of time. And your frame is certainly better, even though you didn't have your legs tied in with your sweet spot on that. But you were certainly on the right direction. And so I'm going to pull it down the line, and we're going to talk about that for a second through the ball.
Because like I've noticed it as well, like with my long irons, like if I feel I really need to get some distance, like I get quite quick, and then maybe it gets worse.
Yeah,
so it might be.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it might be just. I think like transition gets a bit quick, maybe.
Yeah. So right here, what'll happen typically with long irons is, it's been around forever. Is guys will try to swing them a little more violently in transition because they're fear of the target, right? It's just a fear of the distance is all. So it makes you anticipate and have a little more anxiety, which I would just tell you to stay more patient and more torqued, especially in this zone right here. You're going to want to stay patient here and patient, and then from there you can start to let it go. You can start to let it unwind. But we
think like
go ahead.
Even with my like 3-wood though, like I hit it pretty well, like. And like I'm just as violent, like if I was hitting like a long 5-iron or something, but I seem to hit it really well, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether that's just easier.
Well, you have more mass behind a 3-wood, so you're that's why hybrids are so popular, and a lot of good players don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. The more mass you have, like the 3-wood, is easier to hit than most people's true 4-iron, 3-iron because there's forgiveness behind it, whereas you don't have that for the 3 and the 4 and the 5 even. And I know your golf swing, and I know you can hit a 5-iron and all that. It's the truth. I'm telling you, man. It just means you got to get better with the techniques and so forth. But where I see, we know you're good right in here. This area you keep the club. Before, remember, you cut your rotation off. So you weren't working like we talk about in the circle. So when you were here, you were just using the arms only. Well, what happens when you just use the arms only? I'm sure you're still doing some of that. The arms will stall out right here. The body stalls, and the arms, your right arm is not long enough to continue to go forward. So I'm going to show you on the face on, so what maybe makes more sense. We call it a long right arm, but you get a long right arm by using your whole body the right way. So
Matt, was this the gentleman that you showed a couple weeks ago that came over to see you?
No, he was the one. No, he was online. I put his video up on the last webinar, and
oh, okay, I missed that.
Yeah, that's him. So what happens if Dustin Johnson wasn't moving his body and unwinding, if you can just picture that, which is what you typically do. So you fire your arms, your body kind of locks up and doesn't move. And what happens when you do that, great players have what we call a long right arm, and they have a long right side. So you can see that this is very long. It's very long through here, right? Well, what happens is that angle is usually here with the it starts to happen. That angle is about right there with the amateurs because their bodies stall out and they just slam their arms down, which is, even though your club is on plane, your club is on plane as anybody I teach, tour player to whoever, but your body's not, those 3 communicators are not in time with each other. So when you slam your arms down in transition, your body will stiffen up. So what happens is, and this I actually learned in biomechanics, but also in Fajing, in Tai Chi. But in biomechanics, when you measure any sport and somebody fully snaps, right? They put a tremendous amount of whip into whatever the motion they're doing. As soon as they do that, the body will stiffen. It's called the super stiffening effect. The body will stiffen up to stabilize what you're doing. Well, the problem is when you do that super stiffening effect here, your body's going to go done, lock up, then the arms go, and you could have lag, you could have everything, and it just goes straight down, and your body won't move because it's stiffened up to stabilize that violence that you have in transition. And that's why you want to stay soft. You want to stay soft, but not flimsy. There's a big difference. So you want to be soft here, so you're using torque versus that speed in here, because it's not the speed. You'll learn. I mean, there's some swings out there that they get away with the premature speed like that, like Roy McIlroy, Tiger back in the day originally. They have that quick, fast twitch. But the thing is amateurs will try to do that, and they can get their bodies to snap, but they can't control the club face. So they just
It's like if I feel really confident, like, and about a shot, and like you're gonna sort of hit it well, I can go like full speed. But the majority of the time, like if you know it's like a tight location or something, you sort of like sometimes hit them a bit bad. So I don't know.
Yeah, this is a good one too. There's a couple things. So I want to draw this. So I like to draw this line right here on the right shoulder, and this kind of goes back to original lesson today about attacking with the right shoulder. And you got to be careful with it, not use the head. But as he's going back, you'll see the right shoulder moves past and in front. See how it's past? That makes him have a longer right arm, right? That shoulder set up here. Now it's moved. Now his head didn't move forward. His head same spot, right? But the shoulder's unwound. Now it didn't happen at impact. You got to realize that's moving in and working the whole time. But this shoulder moves forward. And when your shoulder moves in front of that line, if everybody did a video right here, and there's two and very important dimensions here. One is the stability. This right here is the same. You don't get to cheat with your head by moving your head. And what everybody would do when they watch this would just move their head forward so their shoulder moves forward. But if you unwind your shoulder here, and it's in front of that gives you more angle of the shaft. Okay, and it's like every pro does it. And you take the best ball strikers in the world, and that's what they do. They move that shoulder past, and that makes what we call for a long right arm. It makes for a long left arm.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my friend he's quite a good player. He doesn't really know much about like coaching, but and we were looking at mine, and it seemed to be like I was rotating, but all my hands and everything were going sort of left.
Yes, you're talking about through the shot, right?
Yeah, just sort of like, well, even from the top, like instead of letting my hands sort of drop down a little and let the shoulder come in, it would just be like all pulling left.
Yeah,
you're
probably looking more at the body because your plane of your downswing was great. The shaft plane is fine. Like your shaft plane's not over or anything like that. You got to be careful with what you're really looking at. I think you're what I'll show you down the line what you're doing, and you also pull the club in a little bit left a little bit early, but that's from pulling in transition. Like you get here to the top, right? So your downswing is the same as that. I mean, the head's in that same ballpark, but the difference is you look at where he's at. He's more centered up right here, right? Whereas you're trying to pull with your left shoulder, your hips don't really move, and your left shoulder's trying to pull out a little bit, but you still have enough flexibility and discipline to keep the club back. What you got to do is get more synchronized in transition here. Slow down, let everything collect first, and then let everything unwind in the circle. I mean, it really won't ever change. Well, you already did. You shot, I think, one over the other day and striked it, like what you texted me. But, the better you get with this communication here in transition, you're going to find it's in this area. The better you get in there, the better you're going to start being in through here, especially with the chipping training. Now, one thing I noticed in that video too the other day is where his club head here is just slightly left, and it should be just like that. Yours was sneaking over here a little bit too much here, and then you remember what I showed you about your fall through. He cuts it off, whereas your right shoulder was going, another 40 degrees here, which is causing, when you see somebody spinning for really over rotating in their finish, that tells you they're trying to spin probably way too late in their downswing because they didn't do it at the right time. They weren't connected in transition. So what happens is they don't really do anything through the ball, which is kind of what you do with your body, and then all of a sudden you start spinning like hell to get out, as you're hitting the ball, which doesn't do much for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah.
But if you go back to that super stiffening effect in transition, that is a fact. As soon as that's it's a big part of my philosophy and why we don't want players snapping in transition, why we want them to slow down in the decel training. When you decelerate, your core is engaged, but it's not going into that shock factor, right? I mean, if he snaps right here, like if he cocks that club down and snaps like crazy, his body is going to stiffen up, one, to protect his spine, and two, to create the release. He would be basically preparing for his max release right in here, even though it's going to go through the ball. He would be preparing for that max speed. What he does is it comes in, and all of a sudden, that's where his body stiffens up. And then again, remember, this stiffening I'm talking about is not conscious. It just happens. So when he hits it, now his body, if you did muscle contraction testing, which I have done, it would be just every muscle would be literally locked up except for his arms and his hands. Everything. It would be just on fire. Now, in here, it would just be, it would be small, it would be contractions and all that, but it wouldn't be like that super stiffening effect. So, and that's every sport. So if you can picture, it's just like that's why we talk about torque and slow moving torque versus that fast switch, kind of flinching. It really is what it is, but it's just not the right way to think about your golf swing. People need to think slow torquing motions, keeping that torque in their body and in the club.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I'm quick, as long as I'm, the body's engaged properly. The trouble is when it doesn't get engaged properly, and then you sort of lose the club.
Yeah, in another way, there's also, it's golf, so you got all these different ways of doing stuff, right? But I mean, it's what I see in your swing is like, like you kind of downcock the club right in here, so the club, which is fine. I mean, you downcock a little bit right in this area, which is okay. But when you do it violently and you have that kind of that snapping effect, that's when your body would stiffen. But there's also other ways of doing it in which actually disengages the core. And that's if the body accelerates out here to the left, and you're trying to spin the shoulder and lean the head hard left. You might not get the acceleration out of this. You might not be accelerating, but the club will start to move away this way. But we know you keep the club up in the air really well, so we know you're not really hanging hard left in your transition. I mean, I've seen your swing; it's very nice.
It just seems to be like a few bit dust into sort of waist side. And then it's from waist high, like, whether I lose the energy, like, sort of there, maybe.
Yeah, so from here, this is where I always say the same stuff, but there's a reason for that, right? But this is all, you don't have that circle, right? Where this is, and again, it's not a spin, this is just it's a slow moving circle, and this is doing the same thing. That all those are working you just got to think like, and when I play this, it's just like it is. It's like it's just everything is connected for him. I can't say it feels like this for him, but I'm telling you, I guarantee his swing feels slow, even though he knows there's massive power. I guarantee he's got that internal slow, heavy feeling. You can see it. Just everything unwinding, everything's in time with each other, and it's never stopping. It's not spinning, which will cause it. That's that premature acceleration. If you snap your hips, if you try to get in here and snap your hips, you'll lose that communication with the sweet spot. You'll get too much separation, and you won't be able to feel it, and you won't be able to stabilize it. And like Tiger Woods or Roy McIlroy. And Roy's doing a lot better job, and obviously Tiger is doing a lot better job than when he first came on tour. In 2000, that's when Tiger was the most synced up with everything. And, you look at how much better of a ball striker he was versus what he was in 1997. And the reason why he changed that was he knew he could win the Masters probably every year spinning out because it wasn't a ball striker's golf course essentially. But he knew he could never win a U.S. Open doing that. And, so that's one of the reasons why he wanted to sync up his golf swing in order. So it's not about spinning and it's not about staying just dead either. It's you just, like I said, the best way, it's kind of this slow moving wrenching. All these muscles are just wrenching in the club the same way. It's just really slow torque, and it's kind of stops moving right here in transition. We certainly teach that, where it stops moving, then you gather it, you feel it, and then you just slowly move. Everything just keeps moving. But never spinning or snapping or adding premature hit or hit impulse or acceleration or any of that crazy stuff. And you got to be aware of, if you're doing it, one, you got to tap into it. That's what we were talking about earlier with Eric. Sometimes you got to video it and see it, which it's certainly, I believe in the video. I don't shy away from video at all. I think you just need to know what you're looking for, and don't try to make yourself look like some kind of model that you're not. Just make sure the big stuff is clear, your frame is clear, and you're good to go on some of the framework. And then all the little stuff we do with the hand training, I don't see how anybody can't get better if they chip and pitching all the time, especially the hook and runs, the ones we're teaching for ball striking, not necessarily the chippers and all that where you might slice them, or you're playing different short shots or bunker shots. I'm talking about just the kind of the chip and runs and the like you see on our ball striking scale. I just see it being impossible, because you're building your hands and you're building your club relationship. You're getting that built, and if you start to correct the frame, there's just no way. And you're playing golf, so. But
yeah, I think the hands. I don't know if I'm still trained properly, but when I'm playing like a bunker shot, like I've got quite good awareness of like keeping it in a sort of straight path with the ball. But then like sometimes when I'm chipping, like the club's outside in my hands, it's coming quite steep. It comes steep and left, but it seems to be the way that like my hands want to swing. I don't know if you were to change
I know
it.
exactly what you're talking about, because I have seen it, like I was showing earlier, like your swing goes too left too early through impact, right? That's where you see guys that, and I'm not saying you're trying to do it, but a lot of people are trying to, they're trying to swing left through the ball. And what they forget is, like, you can't just swing left and have, like, I guess just the best way to say it, swing left without any regards to anything. And that's what people are teaching and kind of doing. Like, they just swing the handle left, and you got to remember, there's not just a handle you're dealing with a club head. So as soon as you swing that club head left, prematurely before you hit the ball, you're going to hit it left. And that's why everybody says, I'm afraid to swing left, and that is correct. That's why when we do the little training where you connect with the ball first and then you start to pivot out of that, we don't want you to pull that club face into the left. That's just going to wipe you off the toe and hit you a lot of pool cuts, or pool pools. So we want that club, and we want that club or the sweet spot to make direct contact, and then in the way yours comes in, it's coming in ready to do that. Right? I mean, we know your arm to club head relationship is really good. Your body throws that off, and so that's why I'm saying that you come in late, and then what happens is you try to spin, and that spinning move, that kind of twisting move from the top, pulls your club head into the left too early. And so if we can just sync up and transition and get everything connected together, everything will start moving as one unit. And I know Jim Franks was talking about that earlier, but there's a connection through the ball. I think I sent you that video with Jordan Speed too, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's good. That ball is welded to the face, and so
the thing I look at is, and when he's coming in the downswing, like he sort of gets it nice plane and all that. It's a bit steeper probably, but like as he gets the waist high, it just sort of works. It's like he's working his left wrist through. Mine feels like when I get there, my right hand's sort of throwing it over.
Yeah, so
I'm still maintaining the face, but like that seems to be the way. Like in my head, maybe I'm getting in front of the ball, guaranteed, like, and sort of hitting down on it. I don't know.
Yeah. So what happens is his right hand pushes his left hand, and you see his left hand where it's getting torqued, right? But regardless of how you do it, but I'm telling you, the right hand. The reason why you don't see your left hand in his, got to realize grip changes that. Not everybody's impact even looks the same, and they don't. All you got to do is turn on your TV and watch them in slow mo. They don't. Um, it's variable impacts, just like variable planes. But I can tell you how he controls the club through the ball is that's kind of what you want to be doing, whether what kind of grip you got. Right, your hands don't necessarily have to look the same because they don't have to because of grip and style. But how you're controlling the face coming through the ball, just like Molinari, you want to be able to have that connection. That's your goal. And so when you see what happens, where you keep pretty good alignments, but your right hand's not, like, you don't have control of the middle of the shaft, right? It's like you're using more of the tip of the club, if that makes sense. And as good as you are on the downswing, with your, the club head, the 2 dimensions I talk about quite a bit, which is up and behind with the club head relative to the arms. So you're good there, and you keep that forever. But it's still, the body's not it's not in communication with those two. So what happens is it tries to spin and it wipes the ball, and it makes your hands at impact not look as good as they could. But even if your body wasn't working like it's supposed to, if you watch how to control the middle of the shaft, like I was talking about earlier, the right hand can push the left hand into its alignment like it's supposed to, and through its alignment, because the right hand's the only one that can dominate each hand, right? The left hand can't dominate the right hand. It can, but you can't play good golf if it dominates the right hand. The right hand you can hit, and it can dominate your left hand, and you can play phenomenal golf. If your left hand dominates your right hand, and again, if somebody hears that, they could hear that 100,000 different ways and debate it. But I'm just saying the way I'm talking about it, the right hand can dominate, and that's the one you want to dominate. I don't mean hit with it, but it can certainly push the club the entire way into its alignment. And that's why I talk about the right hand. I talk about the right shoulder, a lot.
Yeah.
Like, sure.
He was like we were doing the other night. Like my friend said, like if you were throwing a ball underarm, the right hand would sort of you wouldn't throw it sideways, like out to in, and you wouldn't throw it out in to out. It would be like throwing at the ball. Like if you just had to like stay in your posture and throw a ball underarm. And I was thinking, okay, because mine feels that I sort of where I get to the hitting area, the way I feel controlled is when I sort of push the club out a little, and then I can feel where the club is. But it's more sort of working it naturally, I guess.
Yeah, you need to feel a little bit more like when you're hitting these chips. Like again, like on the website, it talks about there's ball striking chipping, and then there's chipping, right? And they're not related at all. They can be, but you're chipping. If you're trying to make your golf swing better, which you are, the chipping is going to be kind of a topspin, either straight ball or draw. Even if you're hitting a 56 or 60, you don't want. So with your shots, they would be kind of a little bit massé through the ball, so you wouldn't be getting all that compression. It would be a little spinny, which would be the same as like long irons or a driver. It'd be a little spinnier than what you'd want. Whereas if you get these shots, just learning the shot, what you're trying to hit, getting that ball with that full compression without punching at it, and then getting the ball to turn forward, even on a 10-yard shot, get it to move forward. Don't let it cut off to the right, right? Even though and again, yours is happening, it's like I was kind of proving my point as earlier, is guys can have it all the way down the baseline. Like yours comes in 3 inches before the ball is home, perfect plane, face is perfect, literally 3 inches before. And then you kind of pull the club head inward a little bit, right? And that's where you get the massé. It's a whole different way of doing it. And that's why I'm saying it's just, it's so important, like Jim was saying, the little things. That's why you want everything connected. It has to go through the ball, not just, you can be literally perfect going into it, and then just prior to doing that, if there's a flip or a manipulation to the left like you have a little bit, it still changes it all, right? That's what makes golf tricky.
Matt, it sounds like James and I are really close to being in the same place where we're real close, but we want to fix the shot right at impact. Yep. We want to fix it because we've got decent hands, and we've proven over time that we can get it around the green by fixing it. Yep. And I think where we're getting better, or where I'm starting to get better, but I still have a long way to go, is not doing that. You know, we're using the float to set our hands where we want them, and then not changing that. And then we're just trusting our body rotation and everything that we've done, you know, the boxer's arms, to use the power that we know we can generate, and then just let that happen through the shot. And to me, and maybe James is the same way, I don't know, he's probably a better player than I am, but the hardest thing for me is to let it go and just go with what you've got and not fix it.
Yeah, no, as far as player, you're a better player than James is right now, but like we put up...
Yeah, I would think scoring-wise.
Scoring-wise, James got a ton of talent, and that's, you know, as I was saying last week, I mean, he wasn't even on the webinar 2 weeks ago when I did that. So, but I did it because I was just wanting to prove a point. When guys are really close with their frame, it doesn't mean that they're going to be playing their best golf yet. Like, they still know, okay, like James knows he's got a certain expectations. He's wanting to be a scratch player or better. And he knows if he can't hit his long iron solid every time or whatever it's going to be, that just like you know, Jim, that you can't get there. And so, and that's important to be critical of it. I agree. It's just you just have to realize that you know, when you have your golf swing 99.9%, I mean, you would think just logic would say, like, when you swing down and transition to the ball, if you got 99% of it right, you're good to go. But then all of a sudden, you know, you're 3 inches from the ball, and there's a little manipulation, and it changes things.
Bogey.
The thing with my game, it's like, it's frustrating because you know you're probably technically better than a lot of players you play with, but it's not about that to score. Like,
no,
that's where, because I'm new to the game. It's like,
if you want an easy game, you got the wrong one.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's like today even, like, and with my swing, if it goes wrong, the speed it's going, it's like it can be way worse than someone who swings slower and hits it, like, you know.
Yeah, but you know what, James? It's way worse to you because your expectations are so much higher, and that's where we have to watch out. You know, is to not let our expectations ruin our entire round over a shot or a swing or whatever. You know, that's where the mental training and all of that comes in, and that's why, you know, that's why you're with the right program here. I really believe that I've come farther in that part of it than I have in my swing.
Yeah, it's funny, like, watching other people and, like, even the coaches down where I play, like, after, like, doing this program, like, the things they teach is quite funny. Like,
oh, it is.
Like, to me, it's the way I see people learning. I just feel sorry.
You almost feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
Actually, this is interesting. I didn't realize who all was on here, but one of my old students from Nashville. You talk about going way back. Hunter Ingram's on here. I think he's still on here. It shows that he's still on here. Hunter, are you on here? I know he's on the attendees, so he's been on here. So Hunter used to play for. I'm gonna chat with him to see if I can get him on here.
Matt, if you don't want me butting in like this, you just let me know.
It's fine, man. Well, he may not be at his computer right now, but anyway, Hunter and I go all the way back to Nashville, Tennessee, where he played for the University of Memphis. He was he can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was, I believe, born and raised in Nashville, and I used to work at a place called Through the Green. It was really my first, I would say, professional teaching job that I had. It was just after I got done playing golf for a living, and it was I was taking a lot of things. I was really just teaching the Berkeley method back then, but he was a really good player and had trained with me. And see, there's another player that what the hell is her name? She ended up making it to the LPGA Tour. Natalie, not Natalie Goldberg. There's Natalie Tucker, I believe was her name. But they came in together, and I trained Hunter for a couple of years, and well, probably 3 or 4 years actually. And then then, like I said, we lost touch. He was in Nashville, and he got, did his thing in his whole career, and he reconnected here probably about 6 months ago. But he knows, he could tell you my stuff really hadn't changed a whole lot. There's been a few things that's changed, aspects have changed. Even though I was teaching fitness back then, I had no idea what I was doing with it. I was just trying to get people to do it. But he was in the part where, the birth method where you train, and like I said, one of the girls that was that he brought into my kind of our stable was Natalie Tucker, and I hope I know the last name's right. I don't know if the first name's right, but anyway, she trained with me for about a year. She was at the University of Memphis. She had an interesting story. She was one of the shortest hitters that I've ever seen in my entire life. He brought her over the first time I saw her, and she was, I think, 50th in the nation, something. Very good player actually, but just couldn't hit it out of her shadow. And she was big and athletic, so you could tell there was talent under the hood. It's like, and so, like I said, back then, all I did was the Paul Berkeley method. It was a method. It wasn't like kind of do it. I mean, I did it just exactly like Mr. Berkeley wanted it done. And that girl ended up, doing so well. She ended up transferring to Indiana to play golf, which is a better school for golf. She ended up making it on the LPGA Tour, and I believe played for 4 or 5 years. She won the Remax Long Driving Championship. So, for women. So, and that was again. It's not like we're doing a whole lot different. I think we're way better than what we were back then. But we changed her swing within, it was about 4 months, and that doesn't sound like much. But this girl would literally come up every weekend from Memphis and train. When I would travel to Memphis and train her as well, and to see, we made radical swing changes, like the kind that can ruin your career, that kind. And it didn't help her at first. The first couple months, she was really struggling. But then once she tapped into it, it was like a whole nother world. And this girl absolutely, she won the Remax Long Driving. The whole thing was she came to get distance. And I kind of just shredded her down. I probably wouldn't do it the same way now. It'd be a different process, but it was one of the coolest golf stories that I've gotten. Hunter knows about it. And Hunter was one of those that changed levels too, quite a bit. He became a hell of a player. And anyway, I was hoping he was on here so he could talk, but I'm sure he'll be involved next week. He can tell you more about our process and how it all works. Because he's been on here longer than anybody by far. I'd say that was 20 years ago. That tells you. So. Are there any more questions?
The deceleration drills and things.
Yes.
Like I was talking to some players, played to quite a high standard, but like probably play off like 1, 2, or 3 or something like that. But and they do like coaching at the golf shop. And he was asking me like what I was working on, because I said I was doing a program. I said the first drill we're doing like deceleration stuff, and he was like, he looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
and like they were like, oh, if it works for you, that's fine, but I don't think it'll work for everyone. I was like, are you crazy? Like, but I don't know, like.
Yeah. What everybody's used to is acceleration, which but you need to know both, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So let me explain. I don't really ever explain deceleration. I'm not going to spend. I could talk about it for probably 2 hours because I love it. But if you talk to any sports conditioning specialist, right? So a sports trainer for like Olympic athletes.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to give you something. They would tell you that deceleration training creates the most acceleration and the most power for every athlete. So I'm going to give you an example of that. If I said, okay, we're going to run a 40-yard dash right now, run the 40, and they all mark them, you got a guy that does this now, and then you get a guy that can run to the 40, just not as good as everybody else, but then we say, okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hit the brakes and go left and right, and who loses balance and who doesn't, who has the quickest lateral turn. That's when you got an athlete. And that's deceleration. When you train so what happens is, my point with that is it takes more power and effort to decelerate than it does to accelerate, right? To decelerate a load. So when you're training deceleration, what happens is your first time, you create feel and awareness, especially in our sport. But even in those sports, you think about it, you start running, you have to stop. Your brain thinks. It works. It's like, I'm going to hit the brakes. Now what do I do? it starts computing. And so when you decelerate the load, because you're going from an acceleration point from the backswing, in the backswing you're going from a gradual acceleration to a deceleration mode, that gives the muscles time to create torque and start to connect with each other all the way up. And it's not just one, it's the whole thing starts to light up. And that's not measurable. You're not going to see it on 3D. Nobody's got anything. That's called chi. That's flow. And it's not measurable yet. If you measure blood flow and electricity of the body, when they can do that, they'll have it. But that's not really measurable from even an external device, or even considered internal, which is a 3D measurement, which is what Xenolink or TPI or anybody else that's got a K-Vest or anything like that. Those are just measuring internal joint movements relative to the spine. So they're measuring degrees of rotation per second around the center of the joint relative to the spine, which is still missing so much flow, right? Because that ain't how it goes down. What happens is when you're swinging a golf club or anything, there's blood flow going all over the place, and movement through the body. And so what happens is it gives you a chance to, when you decelerate, all that starts to connect and slow down and gather, and then all of a sudden it starts to create that momentum and work from joint to joint to joint like it's supposed to, and create that angular momentum that everybody's looking for. But the decel creates the power. Everybody thinks about it, man, it's going to create more power than anything else you're doing. And the only thing I got to do is I tell everybody, sometimes I just use old principles of yin and yang, and it blows people away, especially at the schools. I don't do it online as much. It's like, all right, because I'll have people say that. They'll do the same thing. I don't understand this deceleration. It doesn't really make sense to me. I don't get it. All right, go to the top of the swing and swing as hard as you can. And let's see what we get. Snap the hell out of it. Snap your hips, snap your club head, and they'll do it. And then they realize they can't hit anything. And then they realize they start to look that, because that's what they already brought in. They already brought 50% of that in, or 60%. Now when you make it 100%, the results are horrible. So then what happens is they start to go, wait a minute, okay, yeah, this deceleration really does work. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that's just helped me the most, because I used to be really rushed and not really feel what you're doing, and before you started training like that. So yeah, I'm quite passionate about that. It's quite good.
Can I say something to James here, Matt?
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually am lucky in that I hit my longer irons really well compared to the rest of my set. And one of the things that I do when I pick up a number like a 4, 5, 3, even a 2-iron, I can hit a 2-iron. The smaller the number, the slower I'm thinking I'm swinging. And just, it's the deceleration, and if you just time it up and hit it flush, the smaller the number on the club, the more you're just thinking about hitting it flush. I mean, because think about it. If you're 210 or, whatever yards away for whatever iron you have in your hand, how much are you really thinking about accuracy at that point? All you're thinking about is hitting it flush. And if you just time it up and hit it flush, your results are going to be good because you've trained it from 10, 20, 30, 40 yards. Your swing is there, so just trust yourself to hit it flush.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, my thought, I just want to be like a Rory McIlroy and hit it as blushing as hard as you can. But
well, guess what? If you want to be the best 4-iron hitter, if you want the 4-iron to be the best club in your bag, you can do that. And all you need to do is slow down and connect and use the slow down drill that you do with your 60-degree wedge and hit the ball the same freaking way, and you can make that the best club in your bag.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, so going to Roy McIlroy, so if you watch him, if you watch all these great players I'm talking about, you have to watch them. I mean, not one swing, but multiple swings. And slow motion doesn't do it justice. I like to watch them at fast speeds because you can actually see the club hesitate in transition. You can see where if you just look at the unit, the club itself, it will slow down, and that's giving them time to come out of that and do what they want to do to the golf ball, right? And that is so important. If that club starts cocking in transition or speeding up or doing all this stuff, you start to lose that feel and awareness, and there goes impact. And so, but Roy McIlroy is a perfect example. He decelerates as much as anybody on the tour in transitions. I mean, like, just watch his swing, you'll see it. And but now he does have a lot of acceleration after he comes out of that. He releases the club. What I call releases the club, even though it releases just like everybody else. But he's putting a more forced release on it, about halfway down the golf swing, 3/4 to down, but he doesn't lose the shaft. It's not a cast, so he never loses the middle of the shaft, right? But he's definitely applying pressure. There's no doubt about it. And that's one of the reasons why he rips it. Different ways of doing it. Jordan Spieth does not do that. Two different ways to play golf. Both of them are phenomenal. So, but they don't. Both of them have control of the middle of the shaft. I can assure you that. And that's what I was saying is so important. And whereas and you might have to go back and think on all this stuff, but when you hit impact, you think, do you feel the tip of the club moving forward or the handle? Most people are going to feel the tip moving forward through impact. But it's like, how much of that is it? Is it massing the ball? You just have to kind of dial into that, and that's where that's why I constantly do the deceleration training with the wedge, is so you can start to dial into that feel. And then it's got to be automatic when you swing. And when you start swinging 100 miles an hour plus, it'd be 60 miles an hour plus. It's got to be, it's either there or not. You can manipulate stuff. But if the hands aren't automatic, if that relationship's not automatic, you're just going to be shooting them out of both ends of the club. It's going to be left, right. But
I think swinging the club, like, I think where I learned, and people told me loads of things when I first started, like, you lose actual mechanics of, like, swinging, because if I do, like, a like, step up to it and just go hit one, like, if you sort of step into a shot, like, and try to rip one, like, almost like a Happy Gilmore sort of thing, you mechanically, you don't even think, and you create so many good movements with your body and stuff. But yeah. Where people tell you, like, when you're learning to do this, that, and that, and it's like you've become, like, you learn to swing it, like, in a way where it just doesn't make sense, like.
Yeah. So in what we talk about deceleration, again, I've done a lot of years of study on this, specifically for golf, the way we teach it and all that. And so the step drill, is something that we've taught. But you think about the first thing, what happens? Like Tom Kite even mentioned this to me when I was teaching him the step drill for the first time. He goes, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. What's the first thing that happens whenever your left foot hits the ground? It accelerates. Now, next time you go to do that drill, don't stop. Just keep running forward and see how good you hit it." Yeah, just watch those guys. When they step into it, they hit the brakes. That lets everything collect with the shaft, everything else. That's deceleration. That's what I teach. The whole program's based. Now, there's things I still teach. There's traditional things that I teach, but the deceleration is to create the maximum feel and awareness. That's the only way I believe you can ever do a program like this online and get away with it and not be taking people's money and not helping them. And the reason why I can do this is because you can teach deceleration. When people understand it and they believe in it, I'm telling you, I've seen the results way too many times. There's a lot of Jim Franks running around there, not just Jim. There's a lot of them out there that are on here right now probably that would tell you the same thing. That deceleration, I'm telling you, when you tap into it, you start to build feel and awareness. And as soon as you start building feel and awareness, it doesn't even have to be good. It could be bad. That's where you learn. And then you start to realize that's not right. Then you got something. But if you don't know, if you're just listening to me trying to say, hey, yeah, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're not ever, you're being too dependent on an instructor. Your goal is to be dependent on yourself, where you start to go, yeah, there's no way that's right. I'm mass saying, I finally feel it. Okay, now what do I do? Then you would probably I can help you in that area, obviously, but you'll start to auto-correct. You'll start to go, well, your brain starts to work in opposites when you feel. Like if you're wiping it left, you're going to start trying to swing it right. If you're wiping it right, you're going to start trying to swing it more left until you balance out that act. But it's not guessing game, like referring back to where I said where players that swing left, traditional, and I'm not here to knock in general golf instruction, but I am here to tell you what does go down if you got a player swinging in to out, too much with too much face rotation, you go to any top level instructor in the world, and they're going to tell you swing left. Just put swing it over it, get it left. I don't care where you hit it. Don't worry about that. And then they hit it left. They hit it left because they just start swinging the club head left, and it's not, you know what I'm saying? So whereas because they don't feel it, they don't know that they're even swinging into out. Other than video, that doesn't count. I'm talking about internally, they can't feel it. So once they decel and they felt it for the first time, they would go, okay, I see it, and I can't swing too much. I have to swing this much, and they start to auto-correct and balance out, that cat and mouse game until they get it to where they can go on autopilot. So, the decel is the basis of it'll always be the basis of this program, but it's not the only thing. It's about chipping away and it's about scoring, number one. But the decel is to create feel and awareness so a player can start to auto-correct and find their way into that circle. That circle of success I talk about. A lot of ways to do it, man. You're looking at one of them right here, Jim Furyk. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat, So, but anyway, if you watch, let's go back to some mechanics here. So if you were watching if you were talking about your swing earlier there, I believe, James, and if you watch how he makes connection with the ball first, and then he controls the face. So if you're looking here, and this is a neutral shot. This isn't like a high pitch shot or anything like that. This is a neutral shot. That's the face rotation that you're looking for. And you just got to make sure you're not wiping that toe across it first. You want to get that flush hit, like he's stabilizing for the strike right there, and then everything starts to pivot out of that.
I think I've got a good face control. I think it's more, mine starts from maybe more outside, and then
I agree with that. Actually,
I'm sort of like trying to control the face, sort of as it's already outside the hands, maybe.
I would agree with that, but I think for the guys that are on here, this kind of face control, that's what you're looking for, where you get the strike obviously square, and then it's pivoting, but where you get wrong here is like right in this area, which you're right in here. Yours is the same as his. Everything's good to go. But what I want to show is you pulled the toe left pre-impact. So he doesn't do that. His goes to the ball first, stays on the ball, and then pivots out, right? But face control is a big part of this program too. Learn how to feel that. Like, it's not as much as people block. It's a full release with face control, and I'll probably talk a little more about that on the video tomorrow that I cut. So it's hard to talk about that just by showing the videos. But do we have any other questions? Anybody?
You know the video I sent you of me sending a wedge?
Yes.
Like on the course, like.
Yep.
I think that one, sort of, the control's good, but then it's so steep, like, and outside. I don't know, like, whether that's my body causing it, but it feels like my hands, like.
It's probably very different because it's not steep, right? I mean, there's a big difference, right? Like, it's actually very shallow, and you had deep hands with the shallow shaft, and I want to explain that because it's important that you're on the same language. Everybody's on the same language because your steep and my steep ain't the same because you're shallow shaft, which is very important, and that would be with any top instructor would tell you that for a fact. It's not steep is whenever the shaft angles. So let me pull up a player, right? So what you are is, like you talk about, you snipe the toe in too early through impact, but your body doesn't connect in transition. It still goes back to you all the way to transition as well. But right here, so when you're here, right, that would be considered. Let's just go halfway down. That's where the center of the spine. So because this is literally perfectly neutral for that. So the hands are in the center of the body halfway down. And then how you determine whether you're shallow, flat, or over the top is this angle here. So your hands are here. So then it's the wrist, right? So that angle right there would be very, 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 very shallow, right? Even though he's got considered an upright golf swing in general for his backswing. So that would be anything. So this would be really steep. Still not over the top. It would be over the top. It's probably working over the top there. Anything right there, even that little bit right there is over the top where the head's past the hands, right? So, and you're working in a neutral area. You're working in that zone right there. So you're not steep, you're shallow. And there's nothing.
Okay.
The only difference that you're and it's important to know because you don't want to start trying to get shallow when you're already shallow. You know, right? You already got it almost maxed out with how much you can lay the shaft down. And so what you don't do, like we talked about earlier, is even in that session, is you don't connect. You don't sit down and get connected and unwind. What happens is you just kind of you like you said, you pull the arm straight down. That stiffens up the body, and now the whole thing, even though the swing looks good, it's not producing. I guess the other day you shot one over, but I mean, it's not getting you to where you can do that every day you tee it up.
No.
And so, like Jim said, if you refer to any of the kettlebell training that we do, I'm telling you, man, I've done this. Don't just make if it's on our website, it's not made up like, oh, okay, it kind of works. Let's just throw it on there and see if it works. I'm telling you, it's been tested. I don't put anything on that thing that I haven't personally done or watched somebody do that has changed their golf games. And I do it in a mass format because I've seen things. There's things that I don't put on there because it might help one person and not help another. This is stuff that's for like if everybody watches. I don't care if it's Tiger Woods or Mrs. Smith at 70. Anybody that watches it, if they're doing it, they're going to get better. And I'm telling you, kettlebells, and it's not heavy kettlebells, but it's the kettlebell training will I'm telling you, if you're doing our training and you start swinging kettlebells, you will play better golf. There's just no doubt about it. And that's not one story. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of stories where guys have changed their entire golf games, where they were stuck in plateaus. Jim Franks is a good example. He's still probably on here. You start doing that stuff and messing around, I'm telling you, you'll start hitting it better, and then you think you're actually swinging better. That's what's funny, is guys will start thinking, oh, I'm swinging the right way. Yeah, you're swinging the right way because you started doing that's chi flow movements that's making the whole body work as one unit, like it's designed. So, and just like, Justin Rose and Dustin Johnson, those guys do kettlebells every day. But, Tai Chi does that. It's those things that, so like for Jim was going back to Jim, the Tai Chi for you, the circling, understanding how to connect the circle and that pendulum that we talk about to get the club, the sweet spot in connection with the hips and the shoulders. I keep saying that, and there's a reason for that, because that's what you're trying to do. So, and it also helps with tempo. Learning how to count in the tempo. The 1/1002. You get the pause and transition, and you get the 2 through the ball, kind of post hit impact. But and Jim, I don't know if Jim, is still on there. He may be out. Let's see. Are there any other questions that we have?
Hey, man, it's Rob Kramer.
Hey, Rob, what's up?
Well, I've been a newbie, so I've just been trying to listen and take it all in. But one thing I did want to ask you to touch on is
yes.
And you briefly touched on it, the left arm, the lead arm, at impact and past impact, how that rotates to prevent the flip, or does it rotate because it's the right hand is under control?
Gotcha. I may have to do some of that tomorrow, but
That's fine.
In the drill. And the reason why is because it's you really need to see it and then break it down, but I'll do my best with what we've got, right? Just find somebody.
Matt, I lost you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Yeah, you were talking about the kettlebells, and if there's any older players there that are listening, I can't express enough how amazing it is to do the Tai Chi and the kettlebells. And at first I was a little reluctant to get started on it just because I was worried, I would suck at it and, maybe hurt or whatever. I was lazy maybe, whatever. But after I started doing it, it just wakes up your golf muscles. You're just ready to play. You feel better. And I've been doing it ever since I started. I'm so glad you kept on me about it.
Yeah, it's usually it never gets looked at on our site because I can always tell because I know the views. I mean, I look at the views every day, and it never gets touched. But it's like I'm telling you, if you're on here, you're wasting money, in my opinion. Because if you knew what I knew about it, every player would be jumping all over it. Because I'm telling you, it makes a major difference in your golf game. Not a little bit. the kettlebells are more powerful. Like the kettlebells are going to develop. Like you're even if you're not swinging good, you're going to hit it better. I don't even know why. I can't say exactly why. I'd be lying, but I just know it does. I've tried. We've tested every workout relative to golf performance. Any workout you've probably ever heard about or that's mainstream has been tested, and you'd be surprised at how much stuff doesn't work. Like it makes you healthier, it makes you feel better. Like even yoga, it's very static, one-dimensional stuff that you do as you're using your whole body, but you're not hitting things, you're not swinging things like you would in like a martial art, like Tai Chi or stuff like that. But you hear people talk like yoga is the only way to go with golf fitness. I'm telling you, it's not. It doesn't do a lot.
Do you think like I noticed when I try balance on my left side with one foot, my balance isn't very good.
Yes.
Like and it might be why like I rotate a bit more. Maybe the weight and stuff doesn't get there very balanced. I don't know.
It makes a little bit of difference and all that. I can tell you when you're doing kettlebells, you're applying pressure on your feet, not because of you're trying to, but like when you're swinging a kettlebell, it's the same type of motion as a golf swing. It's very relaxed. You're hinging your hips back and forward. You don't do that in your golf swing really, but it teaches you how to root your feet into the ground, how to root your heels into the ground, and stay stable as other things are rotating. And it's also developing your core. And then you got to think about it from another standpoint: is that you're doing it standing. As soon as you get on the ground and you're going to start trying to do core work or sit-ups and all those things, or Pilates and even yoga in some aspects, as soon as you get on the ground, get on your back, you lost a lot of function right off the bat as soon as you did that, because you're standing in your golf swing. So the way you have to fire your muscles are a totally different pattern. You don't like you engage. You think about it this way: when you're tilted in posture, like here, his core is engaged because of the way he sets up into his posture. But if you did a sit-up, I don't have one here, but your back would be on the ground. You have to go up. It's a totally different way of pattern of firing the muscles, right? You lift your legs up, and even though you're hitting those muscle groups, it's not really functional because of the way you're doing it. You're having to lift your legs up and go opposite of what he's doing here. He's having to use them going down, which actually takes more. It's harder to do. You have to learn how to engage into those core muscles. A lot of that's in the setup, and it can get a little crazy, but. I know I'm getting off here with the kettlebell stuff, but I guess the best thing I can tell you about even like balance issues, or you're gonna find when you swing a kettlebell, your left side's weaker, your right side's weaker, or whatever, shoulder is flexible than the other. And all I can say is when as soon as you start doing it, and you need to pay attention to the videos and really watch the techniques, because it's the first 15 videos are really about techniques and so forth. And really groove those in and get your deep squats down, get the kind of the push press down and the basic kettlebell swing. And if you get those going, I'm telling you, you don't have to do a lot of them. 5-10 minutes, not 5, probably 10 minutes. 3 times a week. 30 minutes would be awesome, but 10 minutes 3 times a week, you'd see it. By the end of the week, you would hit the ball better. Whoever, I don't care who it is on. It doesn't matter. They would definitely hit the ball better. Again, and then you've got workouts out there. Some of these. I don't know how many we have on here tonight, but I can tell you that if you're doing CrossFit and you're struggling with your golf game, there's a correlation with that, because you're overtraining muscles. It's great, again, for strength and that raw strength and so forth, but you're overdeveloping your upper body, and even though you're developing your lower body, you're not getting the softer side of it, like the kettlebell swing, where you're lifting a 20-pound weight, but you're not trying to do hundreds of push-ups and pull-ups and trying to do power cleans and things like that, and overstraining your body and never letting it recover hardly. And in golf, you can't have your back muscles really tight and your chest muscles really tight. If they are, they can be as strong as you can be as strong as you want through there, as long as you have full mobility, I guess is the best way to say it. And by doing all that pulling and pushing at extreme levels, it's almost impossible to recover, especially if you're at our age. If you're younger, you might have a little better chance, but the results are.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah. I'm going to answer your question here in just.
What was the drill, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What was the kettlebell swing that your instructor did, the tall, lanky fellow? I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. You did a video with him where you were talking about different kettlebell swings and things like that, but he did a swing around his body, and I've never felt my toes grab into my shoes any more than I did with that swing. And that was absolutely amazing, talking about the balance between the right and the left side. I mean, I went out the next day and I just dug into the ground and killed it.
Yep.
I just think everybody, if you only pick up a kettlebell once and do one swing with it, do that one. And the squats, of course, because that was just crazy.
Yeah, the deep squat, like Justin Rose even talked about it, when he learned the deep squat with kettlebells, when he learned like being able to actually do it, was when I started becoming the elite ball striker that he is. Didn't say his golf swing. His golf swing had been the same forever. It was just being able to literally be able to do a deep squat, and it sounds easy because if you just squat down, but when the back tips forward, it gets really technical, and I probably won't go into it all. But to do a true deep squat is very, very, very difficult to do, and when you can do it, it enhances your chances of playing better. It's not the only thing that matters, but it enhances, and that's one of the things you definitely learn kettlebells. That was called the core swings, what you're talking about, where you put both hands on the horn and then you the kettlebell, and you swing it back and forth, and you feel the pendulum, and you feel your toes rooting into the ground, and phenomenal.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Yes, the core swing. That was John Wesley that was doing that, and that's one of his favorite. John's trained with me. He's been an instructor of mine for, I don't know, 6-7 years, and he has a very holistic approach. I mean, he does a lot of Tai Chi every day. You ought to see. I'll post some of his swings next week, maybe. I mean, this guy hits it as good as anybody. I mean, he should be playing golf for a living, truthfully, but he just phenomenal, big power. You saw it. He's kind of a skinny guy, like you said. The strength that he has the golf strength that he has is just insane. Just hits it. You name the player on the tour, I can assure you, he can carry it as far as they carry it. Any player. So this is Davis Love. Rob, I'm gonna get back to you. Still there, bud?
Yep.
All right. So you were asking about the kind of how the right pushes the left, correct?
Right.
All right. Yeah. Or your question was about the left hand, right?
The lead hand, yeah.
Yeah.
The lefty.
So it all comes back to the grip alignment point here, which is going to be, now the hip can be in different positions here, but we're going to say another way to do it just inside of the armpit there. But like so, in the grip alignment point, we want everything to be relatively in a straight line. And what I mean by that, if somebody was bowing the wrist out here, like he's got some bow here, next frame would be straight or passing. But right here in the grip alignment point, the only reason why the head is still behind a little bit here is because of the ground, because he's hit the ground, so he's got that ball stuck to the ground in the face right there, which is awesome.
Okay.
If he was, and amateurs typically don't do this, I'm going to talk about it first. If he was trying to lead more than that with his left hand, it would cause him to go a little steeper, and the energy would be locked up, and it would not be a full. Even though it's a full release, he would not be a true full release, like where he's getting all the energy out of the shaft and out of the shaft and the body into the ball. If he pushed that left wrist more forward than that, so which would be like holding on down the collar, holding the angle or whatever it would be. And so I'm going to back up one. And so if he got here to the ball and he allowed the right hand to pass over the left hand right here, which would flip the club. You don't see it here, but basically that would be the club head would be over this way, and the hand would be right there. So that would be where the right hand flips, which is the most common that you see, right? And the goal here is what I try to get everybody to do is get the middle of the shaft, and I think it makes sense tomorrow. But you get control of the middle of the shaft. As you can see, if you watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about. The middle of the shaft, even though it's releasing, it's still unstable. It's still got control of it. Right there, he's allowing the club to rotate more. But it's so late. Like for here, it's so stable. It's like he's hitting like a little putt right here. I mean, literally. That's what it would look like on a little big putting swing or chip swing. So, like,
right.
I took that and I went, let's see, we'll find something over here. Okay, give me just a second.
the way his hands work, like I think that's what's wrong with my swing at the moment. Is I just don't think my hands are functioning because like certain shots where I have a different thought in my head, like I play,
So
hands will just work. Like
yeah, that's where these little shots. Like so, here's the exact same form, really, essentially that Davis Love was in, the exact same. And that's what I mean by breaking it down like this. So if you look at, if you look at impact, there's the grip alignment point we talked about, and here's the pivot together. And it's really the same exact thing, that same alignment. Now he doesn't fall through because he's hitting the chip shot. That's where we talk about the automatic hand. So when you're training these, you don't realize if you're like that, do that. However many times you do it a week, a day, or whatever it is, it starts adding up for you, and then you actually start to do that in your golf swing. Because it's not something you can really think about, really. I mean, I'll call it automatic hands because it's not manipulated. You can't, even if you're trying to manipulate it right. If you know it's way off, like you're flipping the crap out of it, you in your golf swing, try to take some of that out of there. We call it fighting the face. You fight the face rotation, and you need some of that. Doesn't mean you're going to hit it any better, but you should. If you feel it really doing it, then you certainly need to start tapping into it. But you're going to play your best golf whenever you're doing all these little shots, and then you learn. You just make your swing. You turn back, turn through, and your hands are, well, they're automatic. The easiest way to know that is if you look up and your ball's going straight. And so.
Yeah, Matt, I've actually just in the 5 days that I've been working on those zone 1 through 3s, I played twice this weekend and hit a million chips that were very crisp and very straight.
Awesome.
And I struggled with the short game before that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and Rob, I didn't realize, it took me a second to kick in here, but Rob, you just started with this, and Rob's got a left-handed, and you live in Chicago, right?
Yeah, suburban Chicago.
Awesome. Yeah. So Rob's
65th birthday yesterday, but I'm still hitting it good. 102 miles an hour club head speed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what's your handicap right now?
3.8 index.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's with the Parkinson's disease, so it's a home run right now.
Yeah, and I know we had a long conversation about that. Even dabbling into the Tai Chi. We haven't done our first live session yet, where we go live, but I know we'll be doing that this week. But interesting to see. And I know you were talking about some of the short game issues you had, but with the Parkinson's relating to obviously the nervous system which is being in the hand, right?
Right, but the zone 1, 2, 3 is really a replica, and you were talking about the chips that are burners. That is really the feeling that I ended up using on my 50 to 80 yard wedge shots that were. I hit 3 stiffers yesterday, so that was really great. So I'm feeling major progress just with zone 1 through 3.
Yeah, and I know in your swing, and we haven't, like I said, done our live stuff yet, but you have down the line. Rob's swing is awesome. I mean, he hit all the lines you're supposed to hit, and the body circle is pretty darn well too. Actually, I think he's got a great swing. The face on, and that's why I think it's important to look at both views. Is he knows there's some moving around there that we're going to be dealing with, trying to interrupt to keep everything else. Actually, the down line view, I don't really want it to change much. I just want the face on to change. And turn you into a plus handicap. So that's
sure. Okay, well, I look forward to that. Thanks. It's been very interesting. I really like the webinar. Some of the comments today were just great, and this whole idea of slowing down the body turn. Somebody who struggles to clear their hips tries to spin them more, and you just dig a deeper hole. And so by slowing down that whole downswing and decelerating, I'm finding my balance is better, and I'm getting more cleared. So
that's awesome. And I know I know, like I said, seeing your swing and you get quick in transition, but just most people do. But you have generally a very quick swing, which probably won't change. I'm not saying that'll even really change. Like you're probably it'd be like trying to make Nick Price not swing fast. That's not really the goal when I talk about the decel training. It's not like trying to change somebody's DNA. If you always listen to what I say, I always say that keep that last word, which is training. It's the train.
Sure.
You swing when you swing. When you let it go. When you got to have a fast swing, fast back, fast through, whatever. And if you've trained enough, there will be enough hesitation in there naturally. Again, it's kind of automatic, but that's usually people try to get out of that too quick. So, but when you let it
But
go,
it's definitely slowing it down, and it feels noticeably slower. So even though it'll still might be brisk, but it'll be slower, and more importantly, contain the energy. So
yeah, for sure. And the containment is where you're keeping the club up and behind the hands. We've got the kind of talked about that. You didn't get the webinar from last week, but it was talking about the variable angles of attack, which just a lot of ways to do it. But
sure.
but yeah, the containment part is huge. But are there any other questions tonight? This is a good one right here where you can start to see where, and I'll pull this up maybe next week. I want to get Jordan Spieth on here because he does it really better than anybody, especially on these shots. But you can see here and he's not Roy's. Don't get me wrong, he's a great wedge player compared to most. But on the tour, I mean, anybody would tell you on the tour his wedge play is not that good. It's what keeps him from winning probably every week. But you can some of that is because he hits the grip at the alignment point. But some of this right roll, you can see the right hand turning over. He's just not getting the ball in the face quite as long as he could, keeping it on the face as long as he needs to, and he'll figure that out. I see him trying to do it right now. He's hitting a lot of pools trying to kind of cut that rotation off. So it looks like I'm sure him and his coach they know what's going on. It's just a matter of being able to do it because he's done this since birth, really, that kind of that roll. I wouldn't necessarily call it a flip, but it's a form of it, that's for sure. It's a lot of roll. And but phenomenal ball striker, and it's just a different way where if you see somebody else.
You think that's because grit related as well? Because he's quite strong compared to me, it looks like.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is it grit related as well? Like you think with him because he grips it a bit different to other players.
Yeah, he gets the right hand a lot more on top than a lot, and he snaps the hips. So on that one he's really not doing that, but he likes to. He's applying pressure from the middle of the shaft, which is like we're talking about. It's just that he's doing it and turning that hand down, and then, when he misses, his miss is left, and because his right hand gets turned down just a millisecond too early, and they're all dealing with milliseconds, they're every one of them. So it's just, especially on a wedge, he takes a little deeper divot than he needs to take, and he just doesn't have the face stabilization, and I can tell he's trying to change it just from what I've watched. I don't watch a whole lot of golf on TV anymore. I just do it to kind of keep up a little bit with what's going on. But, I can tell in his swing now that he's trying to do better than what he was. So I'm going to try to pull up a couple other players here. Chipping, thought I had and this is actually, I don't know if this is a flop or what this is. Yeah, see, that's the kind of hand action he needs right there, where he's still applying, because he has such a weak right hand grip. He gets his right hand, he'll never change that, and I wouldn't be the one that would change it either. But that causes some of that right hand pushing. But that's pretty stable right there if you look, and that's like where you would see like a Jordan Spieth or a really elite ball striker would have that kind of face rotation right here. Very stable.
That looks like my right hand feels a bit like that, like sort of
kind of turns
more on top.
Yours feels more like this right here.
Feels like it's a bit sort of not quite as extreme as that, but
yeah. So hold on just a second. I'll show you what we got. See if I can. Lost my players.
but his left grip's looks quite strong.
Yeah, he goes left, right. It's kind of a but sure has. I'd love to have his problems.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Be nice.
Yeah. So here's Davis Love. You know, you'll see the difference here, and this is, it's really actually much harder to do. Even there, he's got a little roll, but you can see the difference. Like this is all lined up, and on tour, I've been fortunate enough to be out there with one of my players and a couple other that I've worked with on the side. And Davis is known in the locker room as being one of the best ball strikers of all time. I mean, he's in that level, right? You're talking top 20 guys. Where if you take distance and accuracy, which you have to take both, you can't just say accuracy. It's got to be both because it makes a difference. If you take that and you look at the stability, that's so much more stability with a harder club to do it with than what he's got here. And I'm going to try to go one more frame. I can't really do it. Even there, you look at that, and that's a stronger, that's how much more roll there is, and that's with a wedge. That's with a wedge. And whereas this is still attached. It's still attached to his left arm right here. Right the inside. We call it the inside of the left arm. That's still attached up. Where this one has not. That is not inside the left arm. Obviously, that's how much passing he has, roll that he has right there. And it shows you there's other ways to do it. I mean, but I'm telling you, day in and day out. Again, if you got in a ball striking contest, you wouldn't say he would win. But if Davis Love in his prime, I'm telling you, he wasn't a great putter, but this guy can freaking hit it. And inside the locker room, they'd tell you he's just phenomenal. And where Roy is too, with his longer clubs, you hit like, if this is, when you're talking about wind control, this guy is going to wear him out. This player is doing this If everything's equal, this player wears that player out with everything actually. Doesn't mean it's going to beat him because you got putting and you got chipping, you got other parts of the game. I'm just talking about ball striking. But he struggles with the wind, and now you kind of can see why. So, and I know he knows these things. I'm not saying anything he would not know. I mean, that's he knows what he's doing. I'm just saying I know if Roy knows that if he gets this kind of stuff going on, and I'm sure he will in his career, and the sooner he does it, even the more dominant that he'll be because he's just so talented, obviously. That's what we're trying to go. Hell, if you end up here, that's fine with me. But I'm just saying, this is really the goal. What we're looking for. That's more the Jordan Spieth, the Robert Allenbys of the world. There's just high level stuff that's so hard to do. That you may never get there, but it's like, that's part of the fun. Is trying to get there. And when you all you gotta do is get closer than what you were. You don't have to be all the way there. If you get anything closer to that than what you were, you're going to play better. Especially when it's natural, where you're not having to think about it.
And learn how to play with it.
Yep. And you get amazed by what you can actually get away with. You don't. Sometimes we do all this stuff. It looks like, whatever. But, there's like this guy. Here's Jeff Ogilvy. I mean, here's a guy that has a lot of, we were talking about steep earlier. Here's a guy that has, it's fairly steep. I mean, that's steep in the real world. It's not over the top, not even close to being over the top. Over the top is actually, which is you don't see it, you don't really see that actually as much as people talk about it. Over the top happens more down around the ball, but over the top is actually where the club head finally gets past the hands on this side, so the angle would have to be there. And that usually happens, where the club's trying to release out for most players. It's a little overcooked on it. That's still steep, so. And when somebody's steep like that, they will tell you that there's going to be a little more face rotation and body tilt. And if you look through the ball, that's a lot of face rotation right there. But these guys who won a U.S. Open, so that's my point. Is like there's a lot of ways to do it. We certainly have what we think is optimal. I mean, and I think, a lot of the top instructors that really get it have either been there as a player or, coaching guys day in and day out. If you're coaching guys day in and day out and you've got any kind of sense at all, you're going to know that this is way better. Like through the Molinari, all you got to do is look at the stats. Molinari hasn't won a U.S. Open, but you take day in and day out ball striking, you're going to wear that other guy out.
Matt, isn't that why Jeff Ogilvy shows up about every 3 years?
Yeah, when you're that steep and that much facial, he could win tomorrow and make Saul look funny, but he can. I mean, really. But you're going to be a little more like you just said. Tournament. You're not going to be that kind of that day-to-day player. And obviously, he's a very good putter. And so, it really just a matter because it's like we always talk about timing, but this player here with that bend that he is more neutral, shallow, or it's actually neutral plane of attack with really controlled face rotation and swing. That's the one everybody that I'm trying to get players to get to for sure. And then if you end up a little steep, Jim's probably still on here, but I know that that Jim, he went from being really steep, a little over top at the ball originally, but very, very, very steep to slowly easing over to less steep, to less steep, to less steep, and then the next thing you know, Jim's got it up there where he's pretty neutral now. I mean, he's more neutral than Ogilvy is, I can tell you that. He's not steep like that anymore, So.
What Jim are you talking to?
Frank's. I don't know how many gyms we have on here. Probably a bunch.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm better where we talk about coming down the shoulder line, but I'm still making adjustments to get there, and that's what I'm working on. So, yeah.
We'll pop your swing up, and we'll try to get everybody's on here on these webinars. Where not tonight, but as we move forward, where I'll pull up everybody's swing and we can just see about.
So I'm not too proud. You can put me up anytime. I know what I'm doing.
But I think it'd be good because you get to see different ways that people are doing it, and you'll start to understand probably more what I'm really looking for, what I think is best for the players. So, do we have any more questions? Do fire away. Rob, did that answer your question? Did that help you with the kind of the left wrist?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the interesting things you've said on one of the early videos that I've looked at is that after impact, like Davis Love in that frame that you looked at, you don't really care what happens after that. You can do the Arnold Palmer twirl. You can do the back of the left wrist cups down. So you watch these guys when they finish, and the back of their left wrist is cupped, and you're thinking, geez, they couldn't have done that at impact. And, of course, they did not. But after that, the ball's so far gone. But I guess I was going to ask you also, consistent with what you're talking about, you must think that one of the fundamentals would be to get the hands back in the same circle that they're in at address so that your club on the shaft plane is where you want it, not above it, right?
Well, you can have the club like so the middle of spine is where and that'll run through so like Davis gets it pretty close to there, but especially when it's on a tee. But I don't really, it doesn't have to be, and I'll show you why. There's a lot of variables to that. So when I showed Davis here, so like when I put hopefully this camera angle doesn't move. If you watch Davis, you're going to see that club. It's like what you're just talking about, how it's on the baseline, right? Like it's on the angle it started on. But they're not.
Right, and like see that frame right there where you can see the butt end of his club.
Yeah.
That always to me felt like it was a flipper, and that's why I was asking about the left arm or the front arm and like Charlie Hoffman, some of the really pure ball strikers that keep their club square through impact and beyond, you never see the butt end of the club from down the line view.
Yeah, but the thing is with him, even on that one right here, like that club is again when he's hit it, that ball's like welded right.
So, yeah, exactly.
So Venom can do like even Mo Norman, he flipped the crap out, and even Hogan had some passing there too, as well. So, but it's not at it's that it's welded on there through that grip alignment point, and then it's like you said, you can let it. Go.
And would it be fair to say that Davis Love is definitely not keeping the back of his right hand cupped at that frame? I mean, there's got to be a full release of the right hand, isn't there?
Well, yeah, I think it's just momentum. It's something like he's not worried about. I can agree with that. And so even like like with Roy, that was more of what I consider a true flip, because when you get halfway down the line, the ball really is gone at that point. I mean, you can still learn from it. Like if the club's way up and down or tilted, or there's still things you can learn at that point of the swing. But really, if anybody says it is lost their mind, it is out of there. So
right.
If you watch, here's the same thing. but you can see that ball is crushed right there. I mean, that kind of angle, that chat. Now, most people, you can see the straight. You can tell that's just welded to his body. That face is so stable. He could do whatever he wanted from there. And you can see he had a lot of roll in his wrist, but I guarantee you that ball was. So,
Matt, the thing that I'm seeing with these players is one of the things that you really teach is about how you use the core and the boxer's muscles.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hit the ball with muscles down closer to your glutes or closer to your shoulders. And, depending on what muscle chains you choose to use are going to determine how you're coming through the ball. And I really think, getting lower to where you're just above the hips and into just above the chi or neutral with the chi is somewhere optimal, and to do that, you can't do it with tight shoulders or from swinging high. You have to swing from lower and fuller, how do I say, in order to engage your whole body in a fuller way, you have to stay relaxed and stay deeper down into your core in order to do it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt about all that. Even here when you see Hogan, it's kind of flashy here, so you don't get a real good picture. But I'm like, and I know Jim, that one's not going to work. Let me try another.
I'm not really trying to get off topic. I mean, I think this has to do with if you worry about where your hands are, you're not looking to where the issue is. It's deeper within where you're turning from and where you're focusing on to create the energy for your swing.
Like even right here, his club is actually right there. That's where his club is. So that would be the same thing. It's tilted. It's tilted way to. It's. So we all know that Hogan had the ball glued to the face, but even though I'm not a Hogan disciple, and I certainly loved Hogan just like I would with all these players, but I'm not wearing his underwear either. I mean, like some people do. It's like look at the good things he does and give it credit for what it is, but it's like there's a lot of players that do it, like Davis Love. I mean, that's unbelievable to be able to to do it at that high speed that he was doing it at and making that kind of face stability through the shot. That's incredible. And so and I'll do when I do the video tomorrow, I'll teach you a little bit more about the hands and so forth. Because it is part of the core too. The better stability you have, the better that you. It doesn't mean you will do it, but in certainly by theory that the better stability you have of your body and your core, the better you'll be able to stabilize the face through the strike. The better your timing will be, essentially. And I do believe that. So if you're watching a player like this, he's so basically that's so attached to his core right there, and you can look, there's just no face control, and it's turning, but it's got to be turning. It's on an arc, so it's going to be. It's not a hold off, that's for sure.
And it seems to me it speaks to the question of why Davis Love has won at Harbortown. Anybody that's played Harbortown, you cannot win that tournament without being a ball striker.
Yeah,
no way.
This is one where I get through here, and I don't get into this stuff a whole lot. I usually just talk about the grip alignment point and all that. But as we know, it's a straight line with the lead hip. But then that stability through the shot, and if you watch him, watch his body. He's not spinning out with his hips or doing anything crazy. He's stabilized, and
it's amazing.
Yeah, he's just stabilized for the strike. And
from my concern, Matt, I know you're going to focus on. My head is way ahead of that position right there.
Yeah, because you kind of rock back and rock through, but again, and you go over that too. But it's more like is the upper body affecting the lower body or the lower body affecting the upper body? Because it's not just what you see, right? It can always be one can be affecting the other, and we'll look at both to figure out which one's causing what. But here's that left that where I always talk about the inside of the left arm. That line.
Magnificent.
if you're doing that, it doesn't, again, that there, because it's not dealing with the strike down the lines, because there is the delivery you still got to deal with. Like you could have it there and the club could be a foot over, or what, you don't really know exactly what's going on. But I can assure you, if you're doing that and it's automatic, you got a good chance of being a hell of a player, because that's what the best do. They keep that alignment, and that's what you're saying. Like after that, then you can start to have, like, you can see his club face rolls over, and what if you ever hear, I don't know who on here listens to a lot of golf instruction and so forth in the past, but I'm just assuming a lot. Most of the guys seem like they know quite a bit about it, or heard a lot about it, I should say. But everybody talks about how he's got the club face so closed, and he just hits it and holds off. He just holds off the club, and that's as far from a hold off as I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see his glove on his left hand; it's gone, and he didn't hold it off here either. He doesn't hold the club off at all, zero. And so I've never understood why, a hold off would be where this is like that, right? The left hand would be flat, this would be that would be a hold off, right? And that ain't what.
Right.
And he doesn't hold the club off because he's closed at the top. He unwinds in a circle, and he's got his shaft, because his shaft is slightly under to neutral. He can unwind and the club's still open, even though the club face may be a little shut. It's not shut where the shaft is pointing. It's different. And so he can truly release. That's a full release, not a flip. That's a full release. Everybody full releases, which I talk about that. It's a full release and full rotation without a flip.
Exactly.
So that's a lot of rotation. But it's not where it's got to be,
Beautiful thing.
Yep. Matt, this has been a great evening, a great video work. So fantastic. I'm gonna hit the sack and get up and play tomorrow morning, and I'll talk to you tomorrow when we hook up.
That sounds good, Rob. Take care, bud. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Bye, guys.
Good night, Rob.
If there's not any more questions, we'll probably start to wrap it up. If there is, we'll keep going.
Just one, on my backswing, I seem to get quite rooted, into the ground, heavily. I don't know whether I should wait a little till more, the float, or for me it's just, one sort of route from when I take away.
Run that by me one more time, if you don't mind there, James.
So, engaging your body and things.
Yes.
I know a lot of the time, on the float, you sort of is when you're going to engage.
Right.
But for me, it seems to be straight off the bat, when I'm playing, my body sinks down a bit, and it's just there the whole swing.
Yes.
Is
Yeah. So, well, knowing what I know about how you engage your body, you do actually a really good job. So, I've got a public video, and I know Jim, I think he likes that one because he's posted it a couple times. But it's about, pressing and pushing and rotating and with PPRW or whatever. But you do a lot of that. Most of the time it ends up happening pretty naturally for guys that know how to kind of just root and get into their core. And so a lot of that stuff with you, I don't know that it's really that important. I see the bigger picture with you as getting those three communicators like we talked about.
Yeah, I was just asking to see whether I needed to be doing it a different way, or that's just...
No, I don't. Rooting and core engagement and even glute engagement, which is I think it's very important. I don't see that as a problem.
Okay, cool.
I don't see it as a problem. So, and I'll look at all that stuff. So when I see it, because I know some guys will say, gosh, he doesn't, it's usually really simple, and I try to do that for a reason, because if I told you everything I know, we'd be here for a while, because I see everything, and but I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, we're going to do 100,000 things, because it's really only 2 or 3 root cause things that we need to do per player. And,
yeah, the only thing, sometimes I feel quite sort of violent, when you take it back, the energy going into the ground is and then it gets real sort of, a bit, I don't know, a bit quick, rather than if I was a bit more neutral taking it back and then maybe engage, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too much into all that stuff. You get out there, like a robot. But I would just when you're rooting and gripping the ground like that, that's an asset. So that's a good
Okay.
because it's natural for you. Because I know what you're talking about. It took me 20 plus years before I'd done it for a long time, and I was like, wow, I don't wonder why I do that. And I started looking at players, and they do that, and not all of them, but most of them push down. They don't even know they do it, and then they engage at the core at the same time. There's kind of like this little, it's like a sequence. It's not like a forward press or anything like that. It's similar to that as being that it's a trigger, but it's now at the modern game. It's like even if you watch Dustin Johnson here, he's gripping. Watch how he pushes his hands out. That's a forward press. That's not what that ain't. That's old stuff. But it works great for him. But it's kind of him, right?
Why, like, I do that unconsciously, but why do...
It's a form of pressure, right? So you know that there's some power in there. That's why people push down these great players. You watch them right before they pull the club back. You just turn the TV on Sunday, or next Sunday when they play again, and watch the leaders. Watch how they push down, and then they press into their feet, and they turn. It's just they all do a little bit of something like that, and it's more common, more neutral. Like Rory McIlroy kind of pushes his hands down, like here. He's pushing them out that way, whereas Roy McIlroy, right before he takes it back, pushes down, just straight down on the handle, and that's a form of pressure to get what he wants into the shot at impact. It's like, and it's not, well, he ain't thinking about that. And these guys are not thinking about that. It just,
No, I notice in video I do that, but I don't ever think I do that. Like, I've never even noticed.
I don't teach.
Anyone.
I think a lot of that came from short game. I think a lot of it might have came from playing, and they figured it out. It's figured it out. When I say figure it out, they don't even know they do it. You know what I'm saying? They just do it. Those are more individual, things. So, but yeah, what you do, the pressing down and all that, that's a good problem.
Okay.
I think we'll wrap it up if there's not anything else.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably go to bed. It's getting late. It's late here. But,
It's not too late here, but I'm about to hit the sack too. But if there's not anything,
This is a great format, Matt. Thank you.
hey, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for taking your time to listen. And I'll send everybody an email tomorrow with this. You'll get a blast tomorrow. It'll come from Course Trends. It doesn't come from me. I'll be making a video tomorrow to answer the questions. I'll go back and watch the video probably tomorrow morning, and then I'll cut a video. It won't be a real long, but it'll break down, some of the things you can get a visual with some of the audio. So, and I'll be doing that from now on, where I do a video after the webinar, so it can you can put a visual to what some of the audio is. If you guys have a great night, and thanks for taking your time to hear what I had to say.
okay, thanks. See you later.
Good night.
See you guys.
Bye.